Get well.
Thanks. It's more painful than it.
Okay. It is. 6:06, and I would like to call the meeting to order. For roll call, I would like to reading the week following. Recently, regional, local elected and appointed bodies have been subjected to disruptive racist verbal attacks by anonymous callers during virtual public index. The city of Mountain View is fully committed to racial, religious, and cultural equity and justice as we strive to create a welcoming, safe, and inclusive community for all. The Visual Arts Committee welcomes respectful and non-threatening public comments regarding matters over which the advisory body has jurisdiction. Comments deemed otherwise pursuant to the Council Code of Conduct and the Government Code may be grounds for immediately terminating the speaker's comment. Roll call.
Cliff Bryant.
Here.
Jesse Cup.
Yep, I'm here.
Lacey Rathbun. Absent. Tutu Thomas. Thompson. Absent. Don Whitebread.
Yo.
Vice Chair Regina Sakles.
Yep.
And Chair Susie Merhar.
Yes. Let's move on to minutes. We have read the minutes and would like to have a motion.
I will make a motion.
To
Yeah.
approve the minutes.
I will second that motion.
Nina, motion, Don second. Oral communication from, oh, sorry, sorry,
So
I
I have a
am
motion,
getting better.
but
Okay.
is there any public comment on minutes? We have members
Yes.
of the public online, anyone wishing to public comment on minutes? Please raise your hand. Raised.
So then oral.
You have to vote. All in
Oh, we
favor?
haven't, oh, so would normally come, the public comments come before? Okay,
So
okay, all in favor? Who?
Hi.
thank you.
Oral communication from the public. Is there any? We have 7 members, right?
Correct. Anyone online wishing to make a public comment on an item that is not on the agenda, please raise your hand now. If you wish to speak. No hands raised.
Upcoming agenda topics. Anybody has agenda topics? Do we open this to the public, John? No, okay. Item number 6, unfinished business. Point 1, authorized call for artists for shoreline boat.
Okay, thank you for having us again. I'm here, my name is David Printy, I'm Principal Project Manager of Public Works. I'm filling in for Yano Hattori, who's out of the office today. Actually joining me to co-present this project is Brady Rubrich from the City of Mountain View's shoreline facilities. So he's the Director of Shoreline Facilities. Never get your name right, your position right. General Manager.
Shoreline Manager in the Community Services Department. I was trying to update my Zoom name there, but couldn't do it in time. So yeah, I'm in the Community Services Department and I'm located at Shoreline.
Great, thank you, Brady. Well, he'll participate as we get into some of the unique qualities of the shoreline facilities that make it both a very unique and special place, but at times challenging for projects and project managers. So first off, we're here to discuss the public art for the Shoreline Boathouse expansion. We did present on this last time, so most of you, I believe, are fairly familiar. In summary, we're doing an expansion of the existing Shoreline Boathouse and Cafe, which involves expansion primarily of a large kitchen area, improvements to the service and delivery area and customer service counters. In general, a few minor changes to the exterior improvements, including some of the just refreshing the parking area and putting in a new trash enclosure facility for the cafe. So that is the general overall project scope for the CIP, the Capital Improvement Program. And of course, it includes a budget funding at 2% of around 108,000 as part of that project. And as we discussed last time, there was a, I'm sorry, excuse me, I read the wrong number here, 121,000. But there is also reserve funding coming from the Fire Station 5 project in the amount of $108. So the purpose of this meeting is to request authorization for a call for artists and the Shoreline Boathouse expansion project, and to determine whether to increase the budget for the Shoreline Boathouse expansion call for artists by incorporating the reserve funding, 108,000, Fire Station 5 project 20-35, or maintain the reserve funding for future calls for artists in the North Bay Shore area for discussion at a future date. So if we make that there. So one, go to the next slide. One of the topics of discussion at the last meeting was given the potentially somewhat larger public art funding for this project, the desire to explore options for a more robust art element to be housed here at the near the cafe or adjacent. And so I think what would be helpful at this time is maybe to have Brady kind of discuss the environs and the conditions that are to be found out at Shoreline to help give context, to help decision making.
Thank you, David. Yeah, so long story short, Shoreline is amazing, beautiful, wonderful, but as David said, it can be quite challenging to do projects and work out here. I also want to be clear as I dive into this that the restrictions that are listed here are shoreline restrictions. So whether it's a sewer pipe, a new expansion of a facility, or any type of even maintenance work, we have to abide by this, by these rules. And so with that, Shoreline was adopted and created as a wildlife and recreation area. And it's an important distinction because we actually have our own sections of city code for Shoreline that differ from our urban parks, as we call them. And with that designation, and the reason it was adopted that way was because it's not meant to serve like a normal park. Its focus is on habitat for wildlife, natural and open space for quiet recreation, individual sports activities, and a place for observation and study of birds and animals. I actually just took one of our new engineers on a tour of Shoreline a couple days ago, and was explaining to her that in Shoreline, you basically can work 2 feet down and 4 feet up, and that's kind of your window for Shoreline work. The reason for that being, as I jokingly tell people, is that the 35 protected species that come to Shoreline, they own the park, we just work here. And so with that, we are not able to get rid of any vegetated area or pervious area since we've adopted the Burrowing Owl Preservation Plan in 2012 and the Shoreline Wildlife Management Plan last year in 2023. We're not allowed to create perches, any new perches, from the adoption of the Burnout Preservation Plan in 2012. So that's why the 4-foot limitation. And then there's also landfill considerations. And then the other piece of it is the recreation and operator considerations. So the bistro expansion is actually currently written into the agreement with the operator of the boathouse and bistro. The operator has been at that location since 1998 and is currently under a 10-year lease through 2028 with 2 5-year options to extend. And so we have a lot of different parties, interests, and regulations to juggle out here. I know one of the things that was mentioned to me by staff was also the interest in potentially doing something with the lake. We are extremely limited in terms of what we are able to do in the water and with the water. Most of the water, I would say the vast majority of it at Shoreline actually is not the cities. It's either Valley Water, U.S. Fish and Wildlife's, the Regional Water Board. We don't actually have jurisdiction over most of the water out here, including the lake. The lake is bay water that comes in through the Charleston Slough. And so I'm unfortunately the Shoreline fall guy, as I call myself, and that I get to deliver this news to everybody that is looking to do projects out here. That's not to say that we can't, and that's not to say that we're not interested, but we are limited in terms of what we can do between our agreements with the operators, the recreational uses, in this case, the private event space and the revenue generation that we can't impede for the operator. And then with the jurisdiction over the water, and then our height limitations and our material limitations, the goal of Shoreline, and then landfill limitations. I don't believe that this section of the of Shoreline is over refuse as far as I'm aware. So we have, I guess, a little leeway there, but I know that the water table is extremely shallow here, which is why we have the building designed the way we do, and why we're doing the expansion the way we are, is because we can't go down and create a more structural support underneath. And so I'll be here for the entire item, and I'm happy to answer questions as we dive into more specifics and ideas.
So other than that, we can do what we want. I would just ask to expand a little bit, just carving out the bistro and cafe and the immediate environs and the nature of the city's agreement with the bistro and how they expect to be able to use it for events. Namely, things like the open lawn and so forth.
Absolutely. So I don't know if you've all had the wonderful opportunity to come to the bistro or eat at it, but it has a rather small seating area for the amount of people that come through it. And so a vast majority of the folks that eat at the bistro do grab and go, and then use the lawn area, use our North Shore area, use our open spaces to actually enjoy their food. The area immediately southwest, we call it the Windsurf Beach, and then the open lawn over there, about 2/3, a half to 2/3 of that is actually written into the agreement with the operator to be able to be used for private event space. The remaining third is the cities and part of our open space. And so you can see where the umbrellas are in the photo that is up. That is all private event space. It's one of the key revenue generations for the operator. And so it's important that through the modifications to the bistro and items being added, that we don't impede that. And so we're looking for flow of food, workers, people, looking for access and ability to get catering out there. And so that's kind of how it's used. The building that's connected by the trellis and the overhang is the boathouse portion. And then the bistro is all the southern portion of the building that we're looking at overhead here. As you can see from this picture, the parking lot is full. So we are also limited in our parking. On any given Saturday from April to October, we can have a 150-person event at the Ringstorff House and a 300-person private event at the bistro. And so parking is a premium out here at Shoreline. And so that's kind of really the flow of it. And then going into our protected species, we actually have all of this area is considered burrowing owl foraging habitat. If you are familiar with shoreline, you may be familiar with the burrowing owl, our protected species out here, the western burrowing owl. We also have a federally protected species, a whitetail kite, that has nested just to the north of this project. That species has a half-mile buffer zone, which has been a unfortunate delay in a number of projects out here in the past. And so we have a lot of environmental and then operator use restrictions in terms of what we're able to do so that we are able to create a good flow both for patrons, both for private events, as well as just general service to the customers of the bistro. And then on top of that, being able to accommodate as many folks as like to visit Shoreline and visit this area.
Thank you, Brady. That was. So, I guess for the purposes of the project, so if we can go on to the next slide. So as it relates to public art, and given the environment that we're in, we want to make sure that when we do the call for artists, that we're advising them of both the things that Brady has mentioned and kind of emphasizing that, and it is quite often on our projects that we're looking for both durable pieces that are resistant to graffiti and that can withstand high traffic areas. And in this particular area can withstand salt water, rain, and recycled water exposure as it may define, and of course, sand. So those are things that we'll be emphasizing in the call for artists and make sure that when we do our selection that we're filtering for those criteria. So again, going back to, this is an image we showed last time that shows kind of the hatched areas. You can see the main building in the middle, and then the expansion area is kind of cross-hatched there. It's expanding the facility and showing the major circulation pathways with the arrows. So the existing one in the middle is between the boathouse and the existing building. It gives access to all the lake patrons who want to do the paddle boarding and other uses. The main entrance for the cafe in both its current and future configuration is to the left. And that is where most people will be accessing the facility. Next slide. So here, after evaluating both the existing and future conditions, we've evaluated 5 primary locations that we believe would be optimal for acceptance of varying types of art. We have number 1 is a concrete pathway, so it could be an installation on the ground that's subject to ADA provisions, of course. We also have a wall, a fairly flat wall that could have some art on it. Or a mural, or again within certain parameters, 3-dimensional objects could be placed. But they'd have to be in consideration with safety for people walking by and the public, of course. Number 3, we have a new bench out front adjacent to the horizontal passage or horizontal pedestrian zone there. And then number 4, we have a new wall facing the parking lot. That's over on the right. We have a new restroom facility, so the outside of that is facing the parking, the existing parking. And number 5 is an existing breezeway. So there's sort of a trellis covered passageway that as the public goes by, that there's some additional area there that we could have some on the wall. So those, after evaluating and in consideration of the many and varied criteria for improvements out here, staff feels that these are the optimal locations for our project. And next slide. Now, is kind of somewhat in response to your request last time, we did explore where else and how else could we incorporate art in this area. And again, after a review of all the many criteria, and in addition to some opportunities that I think other staff made us aware of about some available recycled, windmill wind turbine, not windmill, wind turbine elements that are turned into various types of benches and planters. And so they present an opportunity to place art along the pathway. So in this picture, we are north of the bistro, and there's a pathway that goes up and makes its way around the lake. So there are various opportunities where folks, not just patrons of the bistro, but patrons of the park will be passing by. And so these benches are primed and ready to receive art such as painting or tiling. We have some pictures of them on the next slide. There we go. So these are, as you may recognize the cross section there of a very large turbine that's been sliced. And so it's, again, they've reached the end of their useful life, and so they're repurposing them. Instead of putting them in landfill, they're making use of them as public benches. I believe, Brady, could you maybe confirm, these would be replacing existing memorial benches? So they would have a placard or a name on it somewhere prominent?
Correct. Every bench within Shoreline is now a memorial bench as of a few years ago. So there would need to be, we'd need to reach out to the families and notify them if the bench changing, and then we would need to incorporate the memorial plaque as part of the bench. And these are being suggested, as I detailed earlier. We picked ones that would not affect any of the vegetated or pervious area or turf, and pick sizes that were below 4 feet and that meet all of our requirements. And John, correct me if I'm wrong, but we are also putting these elsewhere in the city. And so this kind of ties in with some of our other open spaces in the city and what we're doing with these benches.
You are correct, Brady, and I would just further emphasize the point you made. Each one of these locations actually does have enough of a base, a concrete base that would allow for the anchoring. So we are actually not disrupting the ground. So that's why these were specifically targeted. There are other benches in that area that do not provide for the type of anchoring that would need to be done. So that is why it's just these benches that were identified. And as Brady mentioned, any augmentation to those do need to reflect that they are memorial benches. And so some work we need to be done to maintain that in memoriam element. The other bench locations, 2 are planned in our parks. There's one out at the senior center right now. The other location that is posted, I'm forgetting, and then there's 2 more coming to Sylvan Park and one other park. We have 2 currently installed and 2 more are going to be installed. Thank you, Brady.
With the ones that are coming, just clarification, ones that are coming, are they going to have art as well? Or are these just the only ones that we know of because there's a funding available?
So the other ones can be painted. These were donated, Canvas actually donated as an in-kind gesture to the city. So these were not secured with funds. Through this call, we could use funds to actually pay for an artist to actually paint them. So that's why we're taking this approach with these particular.
And just another clarification, the bench that's pointed to 1, 3, and 4, that's a kind of a 360-degree bench. You sit around it, and that's a pillar in the middle that you lean against. And 3 is like more of a traditional bench. Right? Okay. And what is that thing on top of the 360, the 1, 3, and 4 bench? You have a brown.
It's a planter.
It's a planter. Ah.
Actually have
weeds. So it'll have like, okay.
You can actually place plants or vegetation in there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I have a question regarding funding and the benches. Normally benches are not funded by us, right? We would fund the artist, but not Canvas. So I'm wondering how this is.
So as noted here, this would have to be a consideration if this is something that VC wants to explore. Once again, looking for the alternatives that the VAC asked for at the last meeting, and looking at any potential place to do something else, this would actually have to come out of the CIP budget associated with this project. So that is a consideration. So the CIP
There's
funds,
no other budget. And the
Correct.
old benches would remain.
CIP fund would fund the benches, but the public art component of the CIP fund would be kept.
What-
Extra on top.
Correct.
So
Would be
the
on top of
benches,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
8,000, and then the artist would be whatever they charge.
And if no art is put onto them, the color of these will be asphalt gray, kind of light gray.
they,
Eggshell.
They're painted from like the original.
So-
Wind turbine white.
so if we were, so. So I think the way to think about this is we have an allocation of benches that we're gonna deploy in other locations. Because of the height of the benches we received in this initial allocation that was donated to us, per comments already made by Brady, they cannot actually be installed as they exceed 4 feet in height. We have different architectural elements that exceed the 4 feet in height. So if this were to be done, Canvas does offer a set of benches that meet both the width requirement that could fit on the existing asphalt bases that also are not tall enough that trigger some of the perching that was described earlier. So these would be procured. In procuring them, we can ask them to be primed, knowing that they are going to be painted. Otherwise, they do come in some base colors. So what you have is kind of their marketing image in a gray, but they can come just primed, ready for any type of paint mosaic to go on top of them. And that would be an eggshell color that could be painted. But once again, if there's not an artist willing to paint them, there's not necessarily a need to go procure the benches. We're providing this as an opportunity. Should the VAC wish to entertain this, I think as you go through the presentation, we're gonna talk a little bit about the funding. So I think there's more to come as part of this presentation that might help you help inform.
So just to clarify what you just said, you're not, the city's not planning to replace the benches that are there with these. That would be a VAC initiated request. But if we didn't initiate it, it's not gonna happen. Okay, gotcha. Thanks for clarification.
And just quickly about the bench model, those, because I looked at the website, right, and there's larger structures. So those are the two selected because of the 4 feet maximum. And those are the two models that are,
Okay.
Along with the base.
Right.
The other aspect.
yeah, just wanted to.
So, as,
I have a question.
Yeah.
So about, are the Gus hybrid bench and Bell benches both from the same company you've mentioned, Canvas benches?
yeah,
Okay, and then, just clarifying, we have donated benches, but we can't use them because they're outside of the requirements, right?
it's all.
Right, and then is shipping 3,000 per bench for both models, or is it, if we get 2 or 3 benches, do we get a shipping discount, or how does that work?
The shipping was estimated on their website for 3,000 total for however many benches you bought. But it was just an
Sure.
estimate.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
And John mentioned though that, so this is one alternative for consideration. The other alternative, I think it's the next slide, is to consider we have other off-site locations still within the shoreline, shall we say, jurisdiction that could be considered for future discussion. So we wouldn't spend time on this project evaluating specifics, but there were 2 sites located at the fitness trail near what's called the Restoration Basin. And number 2, it's off to the left there. And number 2 was the Crittenden Trailhead, top of the screen, upper right, so kind of diagonally placed in this picture. So these would be considered, separately from the boathouse expansion project and discussed later in the fall. And so, for example, if the funding, say, from Fire Station 5 classroom project was reserved, set aside, again, it could be this insights.
Can I ask number one, that is right next to the orb.
Right.
It's called the big sculpture
Where
that.
that little,
Google
that,
has
you kind of see the,
put up.
right
I
there.
think
This
that's
is the first
important for
sculpture.
us
This
to-
is
Right.
the Google.
Yeah, exactly.
Snakeskin building
That's
here with
important
the
to know.
different art pieces are all located on this.
That is huge competition, yeah. So,
For dragon skin.
It's gonna be a spec. And
Be
just
the little
another clarification, where can the public park in these two options?
so that's good.
Shoreline Amphitheater.
Which is-
to the north, you can see, the left,
So
off
this
the
is the
screen.
entryway and then there's stairs and an escalator right here.
When there's not an event or concert going on.
Well, the number one would get, a lot of views, people driving by the street. But they're probably looking left and not right. And then number two's cut out in the boonies.
Okay, let's, so we're
The
just clarifying.
parking is an
Yeah.
important.
You'd be surprised how much bicycle and pet traffic.
That's
we
true.
get At number two, that is a connection to Stevens Creek Trail. It's also where it crosses over, or connects to the other side of the
So
creek.
not
There's a
the
bridge
pedestrian
there.
Oh, that's.
Yeah, that's
not
right.
out
You
there
can
with
see it from the
bridges.
trail.
That is where the bike
Yeah.
bridge
And
goes
the
over.
beautiful
Ah.
bronze horse is on that street as well.
Bronze
see,
horse
right,
is
that
great
we-
and
Right.
right on my finger.
And when I took a picture of that, I was desperate for parking. It was so hard to park.
Yeah,
Because you basically encroaching on Google Park
yeah.
and you can't.
And
So,
for clarification, number two, we're trying to give you a sense, but in theory, probably be much closer to the actual trail,
Okay.
recognizing this is a main interconnect on the trail. So right where number two is currently listed, there are several driveways there, so a placement right there would not necessarily be ideal, but the intent was to show you the
but it
interconnect.
could
to Stevens Creek
further right
Trail,
onto the right.
Oh, okay. So that's
where
higher.
we have area to control and implement. some.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So our intent in this, bringing this to you today is to engage in this discussion, not necessarily design or select specific
Right.
art here or artists. It's just to provide you that opportunity if the decision on spending the entirety on the existing project site is not your preference.
Yeah, I think they're both great locations, and I think we should consider more than just vehicle drivers. There's plenty of people walking and biking on these trails, and they could use art too.
Actually, well, yeah, so here we, again, kind of to reiterate, kind of reinforce, we have the boathouse opportunities, the concrete pathway, the wall adjacent to the pedestrian gateway to the cafe, a new bench in front of the cafe, new wall facing the parking lot, and the wall in the breezeway between the cafe and the boathouse. Of course, we have, as we discussed, the 4 benches in the adjacent walk around the lake, and alternatively, off-site places at the fitness trail and Crittenden Trailhead. So, summary, here to request your recommendation to authorize posting of a call for artists for the boathouse expansion public art project for a total budget not equal to the 2% of project construction budget of $121,000, and to determine whether to increase the budget for the Shoreline Boathouse expansion call for artists by incorporating the reserve funding of $108,000 in the Fire Station 5 project 20-35, or maintain this reserve funding for a future call for artists for the North Bay Shore area for discussion in the fall.
It's important to consider that while even if you put the call out for the 2% budget or with the extra reserve funding, the proposals that you get in, you can choose one or two, or, decide that you wanna make a recommendation that you don't wanna choose any. And then we would discuss if you want, these other locations after the VAC makes the recommendation for the boathouse.
So if we don't find art for the 121,000 or just a partial amount of that, we could add that to the 108. And then say like, we want to put that, say, the Crittenden.
Or if we wanted to fund the benches from that budget, or a bench or two, that would also be possible. It doesn't have to come out of the 108. I think is my
So the
question.
call, and correct me if I'm wrong, John, the call for artists would identify those first, we'll go back a slide. Would identify the first 5 locations. And I believe, would we alternatively, at your request, identify these options as alternate, not the offsite, but the bench options as alternative proposals that we'll entertain. Then you'll have a chance to compare and decide.
Correct. So, I mean, there's kind of a menu of options. We tried to make this clear. One, we do have to issue a call for artists. Please note that, have to do that, as part of this project. So the question becomes, do you want to just stick with the call for artists on the 5 items there? And see what you get? And maybe the art that's proposed doesn't equate to more than $50,000. And you can set aside that and combine it with the other money as a future project and do something different. You do have this, what I'll call blinker. You want to explore making available these bench sites. That is a decision point you should decide. Do you want to just append or add to the 5 plus the benches or not? Do the benches get what you're trying to get at, or is it worthy to do? Or just stick with the 5? And then ultimately, whether you want to make a bigger call. I'm gonna make a staff comment here, and I'm not trying to be disingenuous in this comment. But typically, the more money you put out for a call, the costs for art are gonna probably artificially inflate just based upon experience. So that may be something you want to consider. Does it make sense to just keep the budget at $121,000 and try and maximize the art you can get with $121,000? See what you get. You want to put out a call for the 5 plus the 4 benches at 200 and see what you get. Those are the kinds of factors we want you to kind of think about and explore and provide direction to staff on how best to frame this, recognizing much like the exercise with the fire station, there are potentially opportunities for other locations at this point in time. Tried to do good due diligence. These are the 2 that we could figure out that would be more near term based upon the horizon that we could potentially go out following a boathouse. There may be others, but we were really trying to find things we could act upon sooner versus later. So,
And
No, that's.
if I can jump in real quick, John, the other thing and the reason why I think we provided the offsite opportunities is because there are less restrictions around that. So in terms of the type of art that you're getting, I think the other idea with those is that you would be able to get, you wouldn't be restricted to my 6-foot area of operation here, 2 feet down, 4 feet up. You'd have a little bit more leeway in terms of the pieces that could come back and the restrictions around them. And so if you were interested in getting something that was more than what we can allow at Shoreline, that was the other idea behind these 2.
Just a clarification of the budget. How does the budget for this compare to the rec center? Do we have the same envelope or is it smaller or larger? Because we're familiar with that.
Referring to the community center?
Yeah, we're the swimming pool.
Oh, yeah, gosh,
The aquatic center,
Aquatic center,
the
yeah.
aquatic center.
the budget is the two combined, that's what we got.
Yeah, it was-
You had three artists.
It was 240.
Yeah, it was something.
Okay. So this is equivalent to the aquatic center.
If we combine it.
Oh,
if we
if you combine.
Combine it is.
Combine it, yes.
Right.
Okay.
Same order of magnitude.
Yeah, that's opposed to little Chiquita Park, et cetera.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Just to set our mind.
And I think what I was also wondering is the Rengsdorf Park, those two buildings, like what our budget was 20K each, right? On those two murals that we have.
You're
Because
referring
I
to
think that's
the maintenance and
important
tennis
on
building, yeah.
The other hand, like how, because we have walls again, and we have done walls before, to compare for us, right? That there were 20K each, right, roughly. Yeah. Any other questions before we engage in discussion and public
We'll
comments?
give vote first.
Yeah, questions only right now, and then public comments. Anyone? Can we open to public comments?
Yes, you can. Anyone online wishing to make a public comment on this item? Please raise your hand or hit *6. Raised.
No. Discussion, then I wanted to just first of all thank the staff. I
So,
mean,
yeah, I think.
it is super disappointing, of course, because we were in the starting holes for like a big signature project, but I totally understand, and I'm very appreciative that staff went far and wide, because the restrictions are really
But there
restricting.
was some
It's
alternatives
tough.
found. which could
Once
be-
that we have the budget, we cannot really act on it. That is disappointing, but I very much appreciate that staff went
I mean, we could just.
far
have
and
a
wide to
different-
find
different
alternatives.
Space, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
We could, you know, it's just not there, not at the boat
Yeah,
house, but you
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so that's.
Though we still have we've been educated very well by
Mhm.
staff now
Yeah.
on the realistic
That was great.
limitations. We did
And
an
I
excellent
think we
job.
needed that
Excellent job.
because with the
Absolutely.
budget, we
But-
had the
but-
means, so we needed to know that.
But this is still a highly visible location. Lots of people come to it.
It's still
in my
very
mind- in my
important,
mind,
right,
We
location.
should have, within the restrictions, have something that makes it.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
well, and some places not, I mean, there's, you know, nature's art, but it's not full of art already. You know, where I'm
It's
just
another
thinking that
area, that's true.
the Google area has already quite a bit of art over there. And there's also a lot of people, there's a lot of traffic. The shoreline is, it's lovely, but some tasteful art would definitely add something that's not been there.
So when I was looking at these options, I was trying to think in my mind, what would have the most impact for people in the parking lot, I mean,
Right.
people all over. So that's where I thought, something like the pathway or the bench is less impactful than the wall area, because you can see it further away.
Mm. Are you talking about 3 and 4 as less impactful?
No, I was thinking 1 and 3
No,
are
yeah.
less important than the 2, 4, and 5.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Mhm.
Actually, my favorites are 2 and 5. I think 1, just because it's something that people have to walk on, and I don't think it's a great option. I think we could do the most with walls and benches here. And 3 and 4, I'm not super fond of, just because they're facing the parking lot, which is not
Well,
that exciting. And
Well, you
Wait,
know,
so-
there's a lot of foot traffic.
Let's go
four,
back.
I think four, a
Yeah.
lot of people walk by there.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, there
that's the
definitely is high
path
traffic.
out to, you know, the.
But there's
the-
no good way for someone, at least from the last time I was there, I don't think people can really stop and enjoy the art without obstructing the traffic, because there is that high foot traffic.
But the parking lot's right there. You walk past it to get into the park. I would think that would be very, very visible. On
I think
four,
so too.
On four.
2, 5,
Yeah.
and 4, yeah.
2, 5, 4, and then maybe
Well,
some, maybe 1 or 2 benches
And if
over
two,
in the.
right at the entrance to the cafe, then that's gonna get a lot of traffic.
Yeah, 2 is a great site. 2 and 5 are nice.
I think,
Like
yeah,
I think walls, we've done that before. It's relatively affordable to just paint a wall and do it. Have that come out as a great mural.
Mhm.
But what do you all think about the other
Wait,
benches around the park?
So are we limited to paint or can we have mosaics? Is there?
No, I think the
restrictions?
medium is something we can, there are options.
Yeah, sorry, I keep saying paint as shorthand, but
Right,
yeah,
I think where
it doesn't
where the
have to be.
restriction comes in is if you're doing a three-dimensional sculpture in an area where people are walking, you can, you risk damage to the art, of course, if it comes out
You
to,
want
and to
something
people.
sticking out too far.
Yeah, you wouldn't have, so I think those have to be taken into consideration, but that, again, it doesn't, it could be a mosaic, it could be tile, it could be a base relief, it could be.
and could it be like a relief, like protruding, I don't know, an inch or two?
Yeah, that's
Like
not,
have some
that would not be
dimension,
something.
some dimension.
worry
Yeah,
about.
For wall 2, or for the location 2, it's maximum of 4 inches from the wall, and it can hold 500 pounds. So
Wow.
we have all the
That's pretty good.
size and
That's
criteria
good.
in the
Good.
metal.
Oh, that.
And 4 has like some greenery in front, right? So,
It'll be removed.
Well, it could be kept low.
yeah, but then you have more.
Yeah,
Not
space
like
to
a
observe and view it, and then
deeper-
you're not.
So what's green on the plan, like that band by 3 and by 4, that's landscaping?
Correct.
Is that like?
Right, so you wouldn't
That's
necessarily
all
stand.
new construction, so the landscaping could certainly be tailored to the art.
Consider it, if it was chosen as an art location, we would select plant material that supported it.
Like lower.
Yeah.
And
Location
yeah, here.
for it's 2 feet up off the ground, and I think that's to accommodate some of the landscaping
Sure.
plans and
12
500 feet.
inches out.
Yeah,
Yeah, 12 inches for site
depth.
4.
12 inches.
Well, and you could, since that's where the new construction is anyways, so that makes it easier to, somehow accommodate whatever the art is. 2 and 3 together could be a blockbuster. You could coordinate to make them one big art.
Is 3 a wall, could potentially be a wall
It's
as
a
well?
bench, yeah.
Oh, there's a bench. Oh, you're right.
Three is a bench,
Oh,
yeah.
I thought it was-
But I'm wondering.
Never
would-
mind.
Would the wall be available behind 3? Art or not?
I think we discussed this before, and it's like a menu board or something. Can't cover it.
That's
Maybe
true.
on
They're
there.
gonna have,
And then
Signage
Some
will be
public-
there or something.
public-
I think there's signage.
So
That's not a canvas.
And if I could jump in here, as you are envisioning different options and what could go out there and potentially come off the wall, I do want to reiterate the materials to be used. Despite our burgeoning wildlife and wonderful scenic landscapes out here, the salt water and wind in this area is high, and can destroy a lot of stuff. And so I would just also keep in mind when you're thinking and envisioning stuff to just keep in mind of the materials that's going to last out there and whether it should go in a casing to be preserved or anything like that. So I just wanted to, as you're picturing what all the different options and what could be there, it has to be something that's going to be durable too and not corrode or not be impacted by all the elements out here.
Yeah.
Can I ask you,
2 and 5 are
like,
gonna
how
be in
often-
full sun too.
I was wondering, how often do you have to repaint
5 is not.
the exterior
That
paint?
cover?
Like,
But these restrictions would go into the call for artists. The environment would have to be
And
this sun, wind and salt water.
The question of the.
How often we probably could repaint every couple years out here. We extend it as long as we can just because it's expensive and requires a lot to do it. But the trellis was just repainted 2-3 years ago, I think. And we're actually scheduling painting of the boathouse building. We're not touching much with the bistro given this project, but we're working with our facilities division to figure out painting of the boathouse right now. Just to like give you an idea of how difficult it is, that service yard on the right there, we have like full holes that have corroded into the wood walls of that just from water, salt, wind, and the elements out here. So it could anything out here could require a lot of touch-ups depending on what the material is, and especially if it's art that looks nice, we wouldn't want it to. We can get away with a trellis having a paint chip here or there, but if it's a statement piece on a wall, we wouldn't want that to happen.
So if I can indulge the VAC, I'm sorry I didn't load. If you haven't been out there and understand, I'm not trying to diminish this, but I would like to show you just a couple pictures of what it is today. Because I think the thing to keep in mind, I'm not trying to dissuade any of the conversation, but those full trees which are not being touched, when they're in full bloom, that building is actually not as highly visible as you may perceive it to be. So context is everything, right? So, and the other thing to keep in mind is number 5, this is a trellis area. If you're here, you are not gonna be able to see this. I just want you to be
You have to.
tremendously aware. You can't see into that area. So I'm gonna just quickly show you a couple pictures. Sorry, Jesse, these are not, so this would be area 3, the bench right here, but if you're a car, you can kind of see, that's area 3. That's area 3. This is the trellis
Right,
area.
exactly. Yeah, I'm
that's the
familiar with
wall.
that. Yeah, yeah.
So that's the wall for 5, trellis, and that would be area 3. You can see the tree cover,
Yeah.
and I'm just behind the cars.
Yep, yep, yep.
So that's area 3, just behind the cars.
Okay.
We're proposing a bench, but the building would come out. And then that's the trellis
Oh,
area.
boy, that's a,
And that's the wall.
that's a heavy trellis, yeah.
Do you have an image of the wall, the number 2?
It doesn't exist
No,
yet.
because it doesn't exist. but-
Yeah, that's true.
There was some referendum.
Well,
So, and that is area 4 right now.
Yeah. So
That's
the-
area
the
4
wall's
right
gonna be
now.
out there.
It's gonna come
The
out.
wall's gonna be where the plants are.
That's area 4 right now.
And so, yeah, the building will basically be coming out to around where the stone wall is in the front there. So the trees are smaller there. We don't expect the trees to grow as much in that area, given the sidewalk and the root capacity. So those trees in front of number 4 are smaller than further down in front of the bench. And that wall will be coming out. And as was mentioned, that is a very high trafficked area because basically everybody going to the restrooms or heading to the North Shore, parking, walking from the Ringstorff House out to the bay, all walk by that corner down there on the far right of the image that's up. So that I think that restroom wall is actually going to be pretty prominent.
So the one that we're seeing right now.
The far wall.
The far wall.
Right, yeah.
That's the restroom wall.
Number 4, not number 2.
Yeah,
We're
that's
seeing right
number
now.
2, right?
But
Two is
number
right-
2 is very prominent.
Very prominent, close to us. If you're walking on the walkway.
Yeah.
2 is good,
is
and
2.
4, 5 is just.
This is 4.
Yeah, that's 4.
Yeah,
5 is.
Underneath the bench, someone you can see sitting there is sitting on a bench that could represent where the art bench goes.
Yeah, when John, those photos that he just showed you, when we went, it was 10 a.m. on a Wednesday and there was an event with at least 100 people. There was probably 50 people at the cafe, and people all around the park that, can go walk over there, use the restrooms and get water. I went again this weekend and it was just as busy, early Saturday morning.
Yeah, so 5 you see when you go to the restroom. Because the restrooms.
Or if you're going to, if you're gonna do
Yeah.
any stuff on the water, like rent a kayak or do stand-up paddleboarding or something, you're also gonna walk through. that
There's a
area.
check in there.
And
In the
correct me if I'm
store, like
wrong.
ice cream.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Kirsten, but isn't that wall also one of the larger areas that number 5? I think that was the other reason why we proposed it. It may not be as visible unless you go into kind of the boathouse, bistro, restroom area, but I think it was one of the larger walls to be able to use was another reason why we proposed that one.
Yeah, it's 20 feet wide, and 5 feet. So spread the space, and it can go out by 4 inches, protrude from the wall by 4 inches.
When we go up with a proposal, do we normally give a theme for the artist to? Or we leave it open?
We always had it open until now, so.
I think we've done both.
We've done themes. I mean,
With the
We got
quality
this-
center, we didn't give a theme, but we picked.
Right.
Things
Yeah, and
that
if you're
actually
smart,
matched
if you're
really
smart,
well.
you're not
People
gonna,
submitted thematic artwork too.
Yeah.
right?
I mean, it happened on its
walls
own,
and
right?
the
They
whatever, yeah.
scored highly and we
Well,
picked.
and
We
you-
discuss the context and the environment
Right.
and
Yeah.
request that they, you know,
In a sense,
provide up, you know, use their
Good
artistic
results with
talents
the-
to provide an enhancement to this environment and that
Right.
reading between the lines, that would be something relevant to the park and.
Right, because I would want something, I personally would like something that would enhance the park. Fit into the theme of it rather than something
Yeah,
that would
so-
fit into a tech center.
a
This is
smart
nature.
artist will apply this.
Yeah, you wouldn't have a picture of factories there.
Yeah, or.
We get another rubber ducky.
if we're worried about that, you know, we could also
Yeah.
specify a theme and say
A
we want
nice, a
something.
nice ray or two. would be-
But
Well-
the call for artists would say this is setting into a natural or wildlife area.
Yeah.
Describe the environment so that
Mhm.
the artist can.
Provide them plenty of
understand.
context, including all the restrictions.
Right.
Okay, so it sounds like nobody's a big fan of the walkway. And we're kind of leaning toward 2 and 4.
Well, 2, 4, and 5, I thought.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
so.
The walkway.
Okay, remember?
Now 6. Oh, no.
We took away 2 on this. This is the old
Oh, this is-
presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
To show the
Maybe-
rendering.
Can we maybe switch back to the other? one?
Because it's the back of bench, see.
Mhm.
I was surprised to see, can we go back real quick to that? The number 2 is actually like from the image, I mean, there's there's 2 windows there. There's not that much more wall space there. Like on the other picture, it was like,
Yeah, there were windows, but
or those glass tiles.
They're more of just to let light into, because that's a kitchen,
Mhm.
area, so it's not for people to look out into, but just to get light into the
So it's
building.
described here in the, is, for number 2, it's 18 feet by 7 feet. While number
lot of
4
real
is 14 feet by 7 feet, and 5 is 20 by 5. So that's-
They're not insubstantial, they're
Right.
evenly sized.
I like the height that
This is
two
more than
offers.
18 feet.
the windows were high, though.
Yeah.
They were kind of,
Yeah.
But at the pedestrian level, you will have access to the art.
Is the bench like a completely optional item, or would that be actually from, you know, like from a Parks and Rec perspective, would it be? I mean, would it be nice to have a bench there? Is that something that
I think the bench is going to be added, regardless of whether it's.
there'll be benches no matter
The
what?
selection and final design of the bench will be predicated on whether it's a target for art improvement or not.
Right.
You may have a
There will be
bench,
benches
if we don't do a bench.
There may be a bench there regardless.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
there's time to figure out the bench once we know if it's.
We've been doing a lot of benches.
Yeah, yeah. So what would you, do you want us, what would you like us to do?
Well,
Let's go back
I
to
guess,
the
it's maybe
options,
starting
right?
from the small to the large, it's if you wish to prioritize from this list and say whether you want to eliminate one, or pick just, you know, advise us and other ones that you're going to want the art to focus on, and we will advertise only those locations. And then as a recommendation request, advise if you want to just apply, advertise it as a $121,200 call for artist, or if you want to augment with the money from the Fire Station 5, another 108.
So I feel like we need
Yeah.
to make a selection first, because I think that will also impact the budget.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
if we're sticking just to walls, or just, to walls, I think the 120,000, quite honestly, is
Yeah.
way too much.
You might even have
If
money
we don't,
left over.
if we don't even do the bench, I don't think.
I go with what's gonna have the most visual impact.
Yeah.
Benches in the Congo pathway, we don't. But the wall space would have. a
I
visual
think
impact.
2, 5, 4. 2, 4, 5. Are the
Yeah,
most
we could
visible here,
advertise.
and then we could,
Mhm.
you know, see
I
if
would
we
pull-
want one of these windmill benches.
I would assume that with all
Yeah.
these restrictions, you're going to have different, it's not gonna be paint. You need somebody who can build something that can withstand.
Yeah, which might get expensive.
But if I get expensive, type of mosaics, type of tile work, whatever, which can withstand that, the beating that's gonna occur. So,
I just want to be
mindful.
mindful of John's comment, right? It's true, this is tricky, right? If somebody would do like, I don't know, a metal relief kind of thing, right? Clearly that would be probably even above our budget, right? But if you do a mural, it's half the budget.
Right, but the mural won't stand up to paint. I mean, paint won't do with it.
But it depends
I
on
mean,
think
the
if you do
muralists
a
will
good-
tell you there's like layers and layers of protective
Yeah,
stuff.
if you use good like outdoor quality paint and then put a clear coat on top of it to
Yeah,
protect it, I think we can get a decent lifespan out of it that would make it worth it.
Well,
Yeah.
part of what I'm trying to do is.
I bet they're
get-
using pretty good paint on the trellis, and
Yeah, it doesn't look.
sounds like that's got a 5-year span.
I'm trying to
So
also
it needs to
track.
be better than that, right? Because you
It's
can't
a resin,
repaint it after
put
5
resin on
years.
top or something.
I'm also trying to attract artists of caliber who do something
Right,
impactful,
right,
rather
right.
than the nice 75-year-old gentleman working out of his house, me, to do it.
No, I
Uh,
totally
you
understand.
Get a, attract somebody with talent.
Would
and
it
so-
make sense then if we do that, clarify that in the brief for the call to artists, right? Like saying that the budget depends on the material. I mean, I just want to prevent that we pay 120,000 for a mural on those 2 walls, 3 walls.
Well, I don't think I mean,
We asked for them to.
Like if we would specify, depends on the the budget, depends on, you know. the
Yeah,
well,
we could probably say
medium,
like,
the medium used.
if
We can
somebody
also
says they
specify
wanna
a
do
dollar
a
amount per site.
$120,000 mural, we'll reject them. And if
And we can
somebody
also
comes
say
up with a
upfront.
great idea and it's something,
That's true.
that looks like metal sails or something like that, then that's worth the money.
And we
we
might,
can also specify
it's our
upfront like a
pick.
dollar value per site,
we run
we
into
did with
this
the community
before.
center.
Yeah.
So
And then
we
we
could
would
say like,
have to
here's
say
5
that.
sites.
Would they respond, they come back with what their costs are going to be, what their material costs, what they're estimated is.
Generally, the practice, as I understand
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's-
we can write the
proposal
call in
is-
such a way.
They have to say
that
what
is-
they're charging for it and they
Would-
apply.
Would it be possible in the call for artists to say preference would be given to artists who use very appropriate materials for the area? I don't know how to say that
Yeah,
in
of
a
course.
good way, but like artists who use an innovative way or adapt their art very well to those difficult decisions.
Yeah.
Difficult
So,
environment.
I'm not, I think the chair is raising a good question. The best way to answer a good question is with another question. Which is, at the end of the day, as the body that juries this, is that for all of you, a factor you would consider in that jurying process.
Sure.
So part of the call is to signal to an artist what you're looking for. But presumably that's also a way to use to signal amongst each other, this is how you value or weight what you're going to receive. So the more general we make it, what can end up happening from staff's observation is it gets really hard to pick because the span of art, the different type of art can be very diverse. And sometimes finding agreement on what that art piece is as a body can be very difficult. The reverse of that is true when we narrowly define what the art should be. And now it's so restrictive, maybe you don't get that innovative artist that may come with a bright idea that no one really anticipated. So that has always been the challenge with the call. You can make it as defined as you wish. But presumably, you're going to use that as part of the weighting criteria in how you score. So we can define it as narrowly as you collectively agree. Broad as collectively agreed. That is part of this process we go through in defining the jurying and or defining what you want. And so there seems to be maybe not complete consensus on this. In terms of whether there should be a theme or not. We can certainly put in the call what the area is, give all the background as to the significance of the area, what's out there today. We can provide all that background and let the artists interpret that. That's what the body would like to see.
Yeah, I think
How,
we should do that.
if you want some innovative piece recognizing, we would really like to see some 3D related art here. You can kind of signal that. Yes, someone could do a painting, but we would definitely like to see 3D representation in these areas and let them interpret whatever that means. Give them the specs. I'd love to do something that incorporates this, and this. And jury that.
I mean, in the past, we have always sided with giving as much description to what the area is, what the history is, what the restrictions are, and then leave it up to the artists. Right? That's what we've done. So the question
we can
is,
do some of that. We can,
do we want to keep it that way, or do
find
we
middle
want,
ground.
or do we want to, in this case, do we want to give more direction?
I think also.
So you brought, Susie, you brought up a kind of an interesting idea for me is here, an artist came back and said, I want to do a relief, sculptured relief in wood, by reusing the wood from the areas, et cetera. In our call for artists, we wouldn't limit that. But we shouldn't say, we wouldn't prohibit that person from submitting that idea. We shouldn't have it so prescriptive that we're only looking for
I mean, that's what we always shied away from, right? We didn't want to be descriptive.
Right.
But I think
Anyway.
we do what it is, we make it clear that this is a harsh environment. And things don't last, however you want to word it.
material that will last.
And then it's up to them, and if they do it wrong, they don't get pulled.
There's something else on the other end of the spectrum of durability that I think could be really interesting, where we could say make it super durable and withstand these elements, or I've seen art that is designed to kind of, weather gracefully and it shows its age, but that's part of the sculpture, like as this wooden horse or whatever gets worn down.
Thinking
it just
about
kind of
that too, when you said
beautiful.
I mean, if that's the story of the artwork,
certain
if they
oily
make that
woods
very
actually
clear
do
to
well
us
with
and-
that.
And show us what it's gonna look like in 10 years, because they've been doing this for a while, that's fine.
That'd be an interesting thing.
They're familiar with marine environments and they understand how metal works and
And metal gets
Yeah.
rusty, there's
Yeah.
beautiful metal that gets
Well, that's,
rusty beautifully.
yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's why I think we shouldn't restrict, right? But say that we're looking for innovative. Something in me that I just want to prevent that we get only muralists, I think.
Yeah.
Although muralist would be fine in my, view, it would be fine,
In the
but
past, we had also ceramic artists, you know,
So
like really.
I hope our call can convey that we're looking for innovative solutions. This is,
That
it
can
might
be-
look like just 3 walls, but we're really hoping for somebody who can envision something really interesting.
Well, and that'll be, we'll get, you know, we always, no matter what it is, we always get some people where you go, didn't you read this? You know?
Well, that's a given.
Come on, and so
But
we're
that's-
gonna get
We need to
those,
do
but-
our job, right?
But the
And
people
really
that, the
weed
people
those
that think
people
it
out.
through and are innovative,
Yeah.
they'll get picked. That'll
Yeah.
be good for them.
But I think we should emphasize the considerations of the environment, you know, the sun, then water, whatever. And then if somebody works with that, it's part of the artwork.
Good for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As I understand it, one of our main criteria is we want to pick experienced artists who have done something into this before, maybe in a marine environment. That can be,
Oh, yeah.
Right.
you know,
But we can't,
alluded to, not a requirement, but.
Not
just
as a
alluded to.
requirement, right? But that we're hoping to attract somebody who can
Yeah.
work with those restrictions and find some innovative solution.
Right.
They have to work with those restrictions.
That
Yeah.
works well with those restrictions.
right, and that's, they'll
Um,
win.
They'll win.
But we're gonna get, you know, some guys work 75-year-old guy working out of his garage.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, he'll put in something too, because he's 75, he's got nothing else.
So
to do.
this means we're in agreement that we favor 2, 4, and 5 wall spaces.
I would put 5 last on the list, because it looks like it's pretty tucked away. But yeah, 2 and 4 are gonna be, big sellers.
I'm
Okay with all
a little
those
bit
locations.
less worried because they're all walls, right? Hopefully an artist
It's more
would
protected too, I think, 5.
Yeah, and we'll have that option to maybe
that
give
we
us
say you need to do your best piece on
one
2
artist
or
to
on
rule them
4,
all, yeah.
right?
Oh, what
Um,
about adding one of the windmill benches? into the
Well,
mix?
let's first finish with this.
So let's not decide on the
Okay.
budget yet,
Sure.
because I think the benches come in there,
Yeah.
but let's
Yeah.
decide on the art
The
locations. So emphasis on 2 and 4 and a little bit on less on 5.
I would put 2, 4, and 5 out there and
Yeah.
see what comes back.
We
Right,
can
and
decide
we
that
can pick
later.
5 or not,
And-
in
and-
ending.
And the artist should tell us which piece is gonna go where.
Well, they'll hopefully give us an idea what they
An
wanna
idea.
do.
So we should ask for it, because this has led to confusion before. So
Right.
If you are interested in wanting them, this has led to confusion before in terms of interpretation. So if this is something you want them to define, as the artist, I envision this piece best on site 2.
Right, yes.
They should
It's
pick a site
clear
that they're.
and
working on.
to them that
Yeah.
we want that in,
Yes,
you want that information.
right, yes.
Yeah.
I would like that.
Okay, are we good with this? Are we clear?
So should we
Yes.
vote? Should we vote?
So,
So, do we need to
Is it a
vote
vote?
on each and every decision we're making on this,
I
or?
think we have an understanding here. Let's kind of move to the next
Next one.
phase of this, and then
So
we'll kind of wrap this up with a.
in one big, yeah, that's what I was.
All right.
so
So
the next
120
question,
budget
is-
for this.
yeah, if we do 120 budget for this, can we but we still want to do some benches out around the lake, which I kind of like the lake being natural and not putting anything too artificial out there, so I'm not sure about those benches personally. But, could that be a separate call? Could that be I mean, it almost would be, we'd say, look, we need walls and then we got a separate thing with benches. And we
Or
could
a
have the separate,
artist for that.
have a separate budget for that. And it could all go out.
If you wanna do it now, you'd be using reserved funding. Alternatively, wait until you get the proposals for the boathouse locations.
Oh,
And then
Will
you
they come
can
back?
say, we have this extra, if you only pick one of the spots for the boathouse, you have this extra funding plus maybe some of the reserved funding, all of the reserved funding.
Oh, I
And
like that.
So-
and then we have those,
Good
the
idea.
Crittenden Trailhead.
That's a good
the
But usually if we
Trailhead.
put out the 120,000,
benches.
we get art for 120,000. It's not a reserve.
Well,
And
it's a
nobody's
total.
gonna quote
But we-
If you
50.
say the
But-
total for these three pieces, it's 120,000.
Oh,
If you
we
only
don't
pick
do
one,
one.
then
I think we should
I see.
restrict the count per site and say, divide it by the number of sites and say
Yeah.
25,000 each location choose. Like,
Would-
we've done that before.
The question
I wouldn't do
I
that in this
I
case.
had though from what Kristen said is that the benches out there are not. So our timeline is driven by the construction of the boathouse, right? The benches aren't tied to that construction.
No.
So we could theoretically to hit the timeframe is let's prioritize this stuff, get it out. See what comes back, and then we still have some funds left over, 120,000, we look at the benches or the other places.
And I'd love to find someone doing something really spectacular and durable, so that we do spend 120,000
Right.
on
So,
these.
so then the question is, do we say 120,000 or do we do 200 and
No,
200 and some
No, I
odd thousand?
wouldn't-
too much.
no, I wouldn't do all of it there.
I think we
That's,
can.
that's just
The
a
wall
question.
space is just too small.
Yeah.
I would.
Okay,
not
so,
go for that.
so
I
we
mean, I
won't,
think we're,
so we
yeah.
won't combine two
We
funds.
wouldn't- Yeah, that's another decision we need.
So-
We're not combining.
Don't combine it, we just stay with this 120,000, that's it. Other 100,000 from the firehouse, we won't combine it for these three sites.
Yeah.
So the 100,000 becomes then another topic for how to spend that funding on, and the funding, okay.
That will be a separate
Yeah,
discussion,
so-
exactly.
that's a separate discussion.
Exactly.
Okay.
I just wanted to put in a slightly different consideration regarding the benches. I thought that one bench that's by the playground, that's two-sided. I kind of agree that I'm not sure if we wanna, because it's nature and I guess they're just standard benches there right now, that which is kind of, in my opinion, is kind of nice and enough. But the one on number one, because it's facing, if a two-sided bench could actually potentially be really a win, because there's a playground there. So on one side of the bench, you could overlook the playground, and right now it's probably a bench that just faces the lake. And thinking as a parent, this might be actually a very cool add-on to that actually quite cool playground, that we had this one bench, and you could face the lake on one side and you could face the playground on the other side. And you could actually put nature on it, so it would actually be
Mhm.
a bit nicer, kind of,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it.
it's the
Thanks
wrong
for
way.
taking the
Yeah.
pictures.
Yeah, because the bench is
Includes
there.
greenery.
Yeah, I remember when I.
Yeah, that
So-
needs a
Yeah, when I walked around
wind
it,
turbine.
when I walked around it with my.
And actually has this big space, so I
It's
mean,
also-
that to me would actually be.
It's also on this,
almost its own little.
this
art
nose
piece
there, right?
Yeah.
So
when I-
I did want to chime in because this is how it was explained to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, staff. I think the reason we presented it this way was so that if you wanted to do something at the Crittenden Trailhead or the Charleston Retention Basin or somewhere else, we didn't want you to feel like you had burned a lot of that budget for a bigger statement piece or a bigger piece out there on smaller stuff here. And so I just wanted to point out that if you do just pick one bench, that could take away from what you're able to do in those other locations if you decide that. And so we were trying to give you a plethora of options, but if you're going to focus on just the bistro, and then this is going to come out of that, that just means that it's less budget for one of those other locations. And so I just wanted to throw that out there for the opportunity cost.
Yeah, I mean, that's why my different consideration has two parts, that I'm actually thinking I would, if we in agreement to do this one bench, I would take it out of the 120. Because I'm not certain, I don't feel certain we have those 10K left, or I guess 15K we need with artwork, or roughly. Right? What would we wanna consider to pay this for this bench out of the one,
benches-
120 budget, not the 1.8.
I would not pay out of the 1.8. I would keep that for, you know, Crittenden.
Yeah, you would,
I
we
would
would have
rather have
to
that
take it out of
also
the
like a-
120 budget, right? Out of the boathouse.
I would say, I would think. I would take this out of the 100. I disagree with you.
You would take
I would
this
take
out
that-
of the,
Well,
Of the fire station budget,
this,
this. If
Yeah, I
we did
wouldn't.
this.
no.
Yeah, the
Because
fire
then you
station budget is
shrink
much
that
more
budget.
flexible.
I'm still thinking the wall space is not that huge, even if we have tiles or a very, you know, it's not that much wall space.
You could include this in the boathouse call for up to 15,000 stipend or 10,000 stipend or something for art on the bench, and then decide not to.
We could
Yeah.
include it and then
Yeah.
we can decide if we do it or
well,
not.
that's it. Let's
I would
see who
include it
we,
as
let's
a
see who
second.
we get. You know, we're doing a lot of
Do
speculating
that,
about
Yeah,
who we, you know, we might get somebody spectacular for these walls that we want to spend the money with, or we might not, and then we do bench.
do we have that
I mean,
leeway?
we see what we get and then we
Makes the
can.
bench kind of, we
Well,
feel like, kind of have the bench in consideration for the artist, but then take it out again?
So once again, what you're asking people to do is respond to a call that says whether I'm proposing something definitive or more abstract, I like area 2, this is what I'm doing. So if you have area 2, 4, 5 in bench location, you're asking people to say, what are you proposing to do? You may evaluate all the benches and the ranking may still come up as the 3 best options are all on the side of the building, and that's what you want to do. So it gets a little more difficult maybe when there's less responses. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case.
Right.
But once again, you're kind of evaluating each of these independently, and then see how they rank up. And we always kind of go through this of, here's the ranking of the artists and the pieces. At any point in time, the VAC collectively can change that decision once you see the ranking. So there really is no harm to you putting it out there and seeing what you get.
Okay.
You're casting a line, there may be a nibble, there may be a response to it.
So would a person who's good at doing, painting a bench, mural on a bench, be the same person who would respond to the big art
We
piece on the
could always
walls, or would it be
Pick
two
two
separate?
or
or
more
would we-
artists, right?
Or would they be shy away from bidding on it because they're not good at doing wall space or something?
It could go either way.
I think we have to define what there's 4 unique artist opportunities here. You can choose to pick all 4, you can pick one, but here are the 4 unique opportunities as part of this call.
And they
We
can respond.
Position it as that.
Okay,
Well,
so,
and
okay.
if the
And-
bench looked like the boathouse, that wouldn't be a bad thing. You know, if we had one artist for some reason that did everything, maybe that
I feel like,
continuity
yeah,
would be
probably
fine.
we would just want one, right? Otherwise it
Yeah.
looks totally non-cohesive.
Well, and the requirements are about the same. I mean, that bench is just gonna get beat up too. So somebody's, you know, can't do watercolors.
So, okay.
No.
I mean, I feel like, yeah, we don't give anything away, we include it now and we can take it out again.
Right, now it'll
And
be,
apply towards the other budget if it doesn't work out, but
Exactly.
we include it now in the 120 and see what we get. And if we feel like we want to spend it
I
elsewhere,
mean, we did that
take it
before
out
on some
again.
Parks as
Yeah.
well. We didn't,
Well,
we
and-
said like this.
I mean, either we're creating opportunities and keeping our options open, or we're kicking the can down the road and making more work for ourselves later, but that's
Yeah.
okay.
we're gonna create more work for ourselves, but
In the interest of fairness to the proposers or the respondents, are we saying there's a preference to focusing on the boathouse as, and if funding allows, benches are secondary, or are we just putting them all on the same level playing field?
The same, right?
would say the
These
same.
are the opportunities, those are the canvases out there, tell us
I-
what you wanna do with.
Yeah, I would focus on the old house myself. That's had the most impact. The addition of the bench is a nice to have. And I completely agree with Susie, replacing the bench that faces the wrong direction, away from the kids.
I mean, there's
Would
two
be-
different-
It'd be nice, it'd be nice to have as Susie proposed, kind of a 360 bench there.
Yeah,
But
both sides are important,
To me, that's an add-on.
but that's a huge add-on to me, to have a bench like that there.
Yeah,
Okay.
I missed
But-
the discussion. These benches, these wind turbine benches are being donated, so are they gonna, no, they're not.
Not this one,
Not this
the
one.
previous ones were,
Oh, the
the
previous,
ones that already
Ones that
exist.
are too tall
right.
to use here.
Oh, so it's not a,
Where are they? I wanna
we
see
can't,
them.
can't exchange these.
Senior
Physically
center.
different.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're like round and has like swing in it and things
Okay.
like that, but we can't do
I
that.
misunderstood. Well, that's
Yeah,
why I
yeah.
asked. Because it'd be nice to replace those benches anyways, and if we artify some of them and not the others, that's fine too. Okay.
So for this, for what you're proposing, Susie, then it would be 11K.
Would be, well,
Can I clarify, because I think there's some confusion. These numbers up here are direct cost of the benches themselves that would be borne by something other than the art budget. Maybe we shouldn't have included it because it's confusing the conversation.
Okay.
Right?
it's not.
These are not this is not proposed value of the painting.
It's not the
That's
proposal,
just-
What the bench
But
costs.
to be clear,
not what-
But in
the
this
city would
case-
need to purchase the bench. This is a cost.
Understood.
So
And there's no way to get it covered somewhere.
So this is,
That's okay though.
so I think as staff, we can go back and get clarification. There's basically two elements to a CIP. There's the art budget for art. And then there is a project budget for construction. But those are basically the two funding sources that would be available to this. So the question is, does it come out of art? Come out of construction? So the two buckets that it can. And so I think we can figure that out.
Would it maybe
Yeah.
worthwhile to figure out if it could be part of construction?
Well, yeah, I guess the question I was coming by is the 120 that we had for the art pieces on the thing. If we include one of these, does that reduce the 120
Mhm.
by the 11K here, or is it the 120?
Not the 11K, just what we paid the artist.
Well, no, we
So
don't
it's
know that
good,
yet.
there's going to be some amount you have to pay the artist, so it's gonna
Right.
reduce the 121 by some amount. We will need to figure out whether the actual procurement of the bench is an additional take of the budget or not, and we can get that clarified with.
Okay. Yeah, that's just something to sort out
Yeah.
between now and then.
Yeah.
Okay.
The artist will define what the cost of painting the bench is. On how many locations.
Well, we would have to, but I think
I can summarize what I think.
This one.
oh, yeah, I saw
Yeah,
that.
go ahead.
I've looked at the website, they had also round ones.
So I think, so we could, but we could reserve that discussion for once we have all the artist proposals, right? Say, okay, we allocate 10K to painting the bench because now we know this is the bench gonna be part of the construction budget and 10 or 5K is the artist fee, or we don't do it. Right, but it would come out of the 120 budget, that's the idea, that we would decide which all locations and the bench, and then always can decide against the bench at that point. But it would have to come out of the 120.
So if I could summarize what I believe that we've most the consensus on
Yeah.
is that we would authorize a posting per call for artists for the Shoreline Boathouse expansion for the project equivalent to $121,200. Identifying locations, sorry,
Two, four,
the
five.
2, 4, and 5. And one or more locations identified on the bench subpage.
One location.
One location,
One
one
location per
location. Do you have a preference?
Yeah, number one.
Number 1, okay, so great, simplified it.
The style of the bench we know. So
Yeah,
this one
yeah.
particular playground bench.
Okay. And those would be the defined locations of the art, requesting proposals at one or all locations in up to a budget of one.
Asking for durable, innovative.
All those, yeah, all.
That's where we stand in this environment.
Yeah. Does that? I make that motion.
Well, we still have to decide about the 108.
Wait,
But we can, since this has been said so beautiful, does somebody want to make a motion based on?
John said.
I did.
What?
Can
What was
you,
that?
I second the
can
motion.
we do that, Sean? Like,
Yeah.
this is the motion we just
Or
heard.
pass your notes down and I'll read it.
On,
All-
And we have it recorded, so.
I
we
second
all
the
agree.
motion, Don.
so
David elaborated on.
Dawn's summary as our motion. We have.
Second,
Second.
yes.
all in favor?
All in.
Time
favor?
out.
No, no,
Aye.
public.
You have not gotten public comment.
No, we have. I mean,
Oh, okay.
before the
Yeah,
discussion,
before.
because
Yeah,
we're doing it the right way.
You're to the right.
We have. So all in favor,
Yes.
Jesse?
Aye.
Jesse?
Yep.
Good.
Okay.
Motion. So last part of this is the 108 budgets. What do we want to do with that? Do we want to apply it to one of the two proposed locations? Do we want to keep it for later?
So the question really is, so you've basically approved a call for 121,000.
And left
So-
the other part.
It's $100.
So the 108, because you, like, unless you want to append the motion you just approved, the 108 is gonna sit out there. And so we aren't prepared to do a call for that at this point in time. So I think what I would like to gently suggest to the VAC is, why don't we go issue the call? See what happens, see what responses, you can make a determination. If you have funds that end up remaining as a result of that, because of whatever you pick, then maybe have a conversation about the remaining funds plus any leftover, and then what we could do for a call for 108 or 108 plus
Yeah.
extra.
Okay.
But at this point in time, know that there is, at least staff's identified 2 potential opportunities at this point in time that we're not ready to pursue. We need to do a little more homework. But you may be able to add to that depending on the outcome of the boathouse project.
Great.
And
So-
hopefully we could, if we get something spectacular, which we all love. If, are we also able then to supplement with the 100? So,
That is an option.
That's an
That is
option,
certainly
okay.
an option that this money was thought of being used for this project. So if something really wows you,
Yeah.
Someone proposes one panel and it's really expensive, like, gosh, I wish you could have 2 of these. Like 2, then
So-
we have that option.
Okay.
So what you're saying,
let's not
John,
tell them
is
that yet.
doesn't really need a decision, we just leave it untouched
Yeah.
for now.
you've already kind of decided this is what
Yeah.
you want to spend on these 4 locations.
Okay.
Put out the call,
we
see
should
what happens.
Probably memorize all of us that this money is out there and we should bring it up in agenda
And
topics.
we've already basically said the intent would be to come back in the fall, so
Yeah,
we can
okay.
track that pool of money as it relates to this boathouse project and see where that goes, depending on how the boathouse.
Good,
Sounds good.
good.
But that's not able to be used for field trips.
You guys did a wonderful job educating
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
You've learned more about shoreline than some of our project engineers learned. They're,
Thank you everyone for your time. Yeah, this was great.
Thank you, Brady.
Thank you, Brady.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
You too. Thanks a lot.
My work here done. Off to another meeting.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You go to pickleball?
You've heard.
Good luck on that one.
All right, so we are moving on to 6.2. Capital Improvement Program Public Art Project Update.
So I'll do a quick update on Evelyn Park and Village Chiquita Parks. Those two went to the city council on May 14th and both were approved. So now it's going through the contract process.
So with the lighting and all that,
Mhm.
that's now.
Yep, they got approved as recommended by the VAC. So staff is working with the artists to go through the administration process and we'll keep you posted on construction for that. And then John, you had an update on.
Correct. So by the end of this week, all of the art should be finalized at Rangsdorf. As far as the next logical question of when does the pool open, that they are still doing last minute testing. So we will certainly advise the VAC as soon as we know. Can also sign up through the Aquatic Center does have a sign up and they will basically email once pool is open. As you are aware, there will be a grand opening to be determined, where we'll do the art unveiling as well. But as soon as we know when it officially opens, we will communicate that to the VAC. But effectively 98% of the art has been installed.
Has been installed.
Yeah, so there's just a remaining little tweak that needs to be done, and then all three pieces.
And
I saw some
Can that be
photos on the internet from Liz Hickok, the one, and it really looks nice. The rain, the with water drops. on the
Mhm.
wall. Look as cool as we'd hoped.
can it be seen when we walk by? Fencing.
It's a lot of fencing's still up, so it's a little challenging to
Okay.
see. And obviously the Liz Hickok stuff is inside the building. so
I can see that, yeah.
It's an estimate when it's open. No, they don't want to jinx it.
They're getting very close, but they do have testing that they need to finalize, and so that is a common question. And as soon as
Here we go.
But since
there are many people that want to know, and as soon as we can get the all clear on everything,
Yeah.
let the public know.
This is great.
Isn't that cool?
I need to do a read. Don is showing around the.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, wow.
that looks
In
brilliant.
the orange background,
Yeah,
it looks
that looks
amazing, yeah.
That's great.
And then the other thing about the Rangsdorf Park Maintenance Tennis Buildings, that project has shifted over to our Public Works teammates as they're finalizing the agreements with Fernanda and
Arumo.
Oh, and another question. When we do the call for artists, where are we going to? Is it just the Bay Area? Are we doing the state? What's our? I'm sorry, I forgot to bring that up.
We usually also, if we ask for proposal. some two things.
so that is typically something we do. The standard approach has been Bay Area.
Well,
I would.
For the
go-
percent of for performing arts, it is, right?
But
We do
Actually,
college.
for most of the, other than the grade set project, which is statewide, every call that we've effectively done has been.
Can we extend
Send it
to
California?
North Bay, Sacramento, still Northern California? We can do whatever we
I
want.
would say California. If we
Yeah, that's
talking
good.
like,
Talking money.
we wanna be surprised that if any, be innovative, we can still say no to an LA artist, right?
Yeah,
Because
but
it's an
then
LA
it's-
artist, so I feel like we should, I mean,
We're
we
just gonna-
always restricted it to
we're gonna get
California, it doesn't go
a lot
further.
Of responses if we go LA.
So, so what?
Also, we're past that agenda item.
Correct. So
That's right, it's too late.
you've already, so you've already taken an action on a, we would have to go back to that item and open that up and augment the recommendation to modify so if you want to revisit that item, we're gonna have to go back and kind of rehandle it and we go back through the approval process to change it. The default is currently set to the Bay Area. Unless there's general concern with that.
I feel like we changed it around a lot, so that's why and the default regarding proposals.
I bet we'll do fine with the Bay Area. It's a Bay Area.
How about
Come in.
I have a question. If you go outside the Bay Area and get somebody from Southern California, do you now need to build travel and so on into what it costs the public art budget?
that has to be factored into their proposed budget for art. So whatever they say it's gonna cost should reflect travel or
So technically you are a little bit out of order here, as was mentioned. However, a little bit of informal group, I suppose you could vote to reopen the item if you want to augment your.
Well, I think it's something we should have touched on.
Yes.
We should have,
And also the proposal question, actually,
so,
what we want to ask, or if we want to
Mhm.
ask. So. That be
So-
okay?
okay, we have no more updates on 6.
Okay, let's finish this
Yeah,
first.
okay, no.
So
Any-
is there any public comment? on-
Public comment on this.
Raised? Okay,
Okay.
would you like to open up 6.1 again
So I would
to
like to suggest we open up 6.1
revisit the recommendation?
and see if we need to add on to the recommendation regarding area artists and how we ask, or if we ask for a proposal. That's my suggestion.
So where I was coming from with the scope is sort of looking, because of the size of the budget, and wanting kind of new thinking. I would say, let's open it up to a wider area in California. So that we can see which artists would be able to respond to all the restrictions that are still there.
I
And-
agree,
and
in
just because
general,
it's-
we've done that, like for bigger projects, we said,
I don't think we've ever done all of California.
No, we
Oh,
did.
we
Absolutely, we
We got
did.
some.
great center,
some
we
people.
did get people from LA, actually.
Yeah, we got
Great center,
Yeah.
the preparation, we did.
Yeah.
Shall we do Northern California?
Seems
Everybody
more
could agree on
Convenient.
Northern,
And I don't know.
is that
the
too
Bay Area
big, is that too
so-
big?
So
It's a
Creative.
defined area.
I don't know how many more people we get if
I
we
don't
Visual arts.
extend up to.
Visual arts.
No, I don't think
It's,
so, I
not a visual
I
arts.
crave
Too
to
expensive.
open up more. I really think we're restricting, I mean, we have to consider, right, that an LA artist is far away. But if this is the proposal we're all going for and it's amazing, then we're
I
missing
just don't
out
wanna
on
have to
something.
judge 120 entries.
That's not. I
Given
mean,
the restrictions that we have.
Do we have restrictions or we just have recommendations?
No, those are
The environment.
Yeah.
Hell of a
I
restriction.
don't think. we're gonna
That
get
people don't have to pay
that.
attention to. And, you know,
That's true, but we can spot it.
okay,
So would Northern California be better?
I don't know what
I don't know
adding,
if it's a defined area.
No, it's kind of not.
It's typically by county, That's how
Yeah.
we're able to do it. by
Mm.
Areas define the
I mean,
county.
normally, quite honestly, we don't get that many people from the LA area, actually.
Well,
think
that's
it
true. They
is-
may not want to do
It
it.
is self-selecting.
Well, and when you're
But we have in
searching,
the
you can
past
search
gotten really
by,
interesting proposals from
Well, I mean,
there.
Northern California, there is not that much
It
in
looks
terms
like
of
the southern
cities
end
or.
of, the southern counties of Northern California are Monterey, Kings, Tulare.
Yeah, that's actually not that much.
So
no, you're right. It may be self-limiting because people from, if you're searching for projects, if you're the artist, you can search by area. So they may never,
Yeah,
might not
they'll
even search all the way
usually
up here.
not that many.
Unless they're, you know.
Your
the-
120
the
will
70-year-old
not
guy-
be
75-year-old
half
guy
from
in the
LA.
garage
And for-
Isn't gonna do that.
And
so-
for them, it's more expensive because they have
Right,
travel,
right.
transportation.
never
We can
know,
identify that
artists-
they need to incorporate, if they want to be
Yeah.
compensated.
Okay,
for
let's
travel,
do that
it's
then.
incorporated.
Let's just
And
do
you
the
never know,
state
there's
and-
artists who already do something up here and will be excited to do another thing up here, or they are in both areas and they have people here that they work with. I mean, yeah, I
Okay.
feel like it
Okay.
will be self-selecting and not be
I guess we'll
adding
find
that
out.
many more.
And also if they say you have to cover, your proposal has to cover your costs and whatnot. We
I
can
think that's
evaluate that.
built
Is
in,
it really
yeah.
worth it to
Exactly.
reduce that?
And it will
or
be again on us to
To-
decide
to
that.
evaluate?
Okay, so we're good on
Yeah.
California. So the second one is, do we ask for a proposal? This is a higher budget. I think the default's been asking for one.
I think we should for this.
And then sometimes we have decided to give a stipend and sometimes not. So we also need to think about that.
But
So-
then usually it was a two step. So we selected, first it was looking at their portfolio, then we selected, I don't know, 5, 6, and then they got a stipend to do a proposal.
The stipend always happened as a
Yeah,
second.
like a second step.
Yeah.
But we don't have that time, do we?
But the timeline on this one is very short.
Well, it's a little short, but we also have the challenge of the break. So
Yeah.
the two-step process is when we have a little bit longer timeline to
Yeah,
work
yeah.
with.
Okay.
So you can, without asking the artist to do too much, you can ask them to describe, not do a mock-up, but just describe. We can make it an optional thing or a required thing, describe
What piece you would have here.
the type of piece you are interested in doing. And so you're really evaluating their past history and then basically I want to do a 2D sculpture of a sailboat. And you're kind of, all right, based upon your past artwork and what you're proposing, I rate it.
But when they submit, we require them to show examples of the previous art. So that we can kind of see.
I mean, you get those 5 or how many images on the call for artists,
I
right?
think standards like 5 to 10.
Yeah. I mean, you get that.
And they should probably put their website or Insta or.
We can ask
So
for-
we can
I
evaluate.
would
what
like
they
to
have.
suggest we get the
Yeah.
web, or they give us a link.
Like a portfolio link.
What they could do
Whatever.
is like give a description, this is what I would wanna do, 2 or 3 sentences. And give us a place where we can find
Type of work you've
samples,
done,
and then they
your
could
work.
put their Instagram or their website
Yeah.
and say, they don't have to submit a sketch, they don't have to have a final idea. But they could say, well, is there like a link that would inform us of what
type
we
of work you do?
potentially would do? And describe this in
Well,
words.
haven't we usually asked them to send in pictures of their past work?
Right? And,
It's been between
Whatever,
5 and
yeah.
10 as well.
yeah,
Okay. Okay.
this would just give them an
Yeah,
extra
so-
opportunity to give us a better idea
Yeah, we can
about
do that on our own.
Yeah.
Sure.
Is this helpful?
So
Clear.
what I'm hearing is a recommendation for the Boathouse Call for Artists to be expand the call to all of California. In the call, seek a written description of the proposed art along with the standard 5 to 10 images, past history of work, and then seek references to online portfolio, Instagram as backup to
If
that.
they feel that's helpful, they should
Okay.
include that.
Is that?
So
That proposal?
does that sound good to
I'm
everyone? Does anybody?
Yeah.
So for doing this,
Dawn is the first, I saw a thumbs up. Is there a second?
Yeah.
you just second,
Wants to
A
make a
second.
motion?
Tina is second.
and then we
All
vote.
in favor?
I,
Okay,
Alright, so
this
that's-
is the addendum to our,
And should
Is-
all
is,
those additional ones.
yes.
as long as we've reopened 6.1 though, I did want to throw out the option of picking out a dollar amount per site. So we don't run into the issue of, one artist saying, I'm going to paint this bench, I'm going to take up the whole budget. So I think if we were going to do that, what I would suggest is just like take the total dollar amount minus cost of the bench, divide it by 4 and say you get this much per site. That way we don't have someone trying to hog the whole budget and we can head that off at the pass. That's my suggestion.
Yeah,
I would say let's leave it open until we get what we.
Right, I
and
think
then-
so too.
Then decide.
I
as
think
part of our
because
evaluation.
we're not, yeah, I think this is how we came to the agreement, right, with the bench and everything. And I
Well,
think we need to leave it open.
and as long as we remember to be careful
That's
in our
true.
judging, to look at their whole proposal, including the price.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I guess that's part of the call would be what's your cost per site? You want to do site 2 with a sailboat, how much is it gonna be? So we can,
Yes, we do ask. We can ask for a descriptive budget. So it's awesome.
That's usually helpful if we wanna skip something, right,
Right.
because we feel like it's, yeah.
and then we need Jessie's point of.
Yeah. Does that need another addendum, John?
It's typically something that's already.
But that's
Yeah,
kind of the
yeah.
default,
that's
right?
standard,
This
yeah.
Okay.
descriptive budget. Okay, sounds good. Okay, let's move on.
So we're done with,
We're good, right? Yeah, we went back.
Thanks, John.
We voted, we're going back, so we are, because we still have another big item on
We have
the
2 more items.
list. And that is 6.3 work session, visual arts committee feedback on the art strategy elements.
So, I will be presenting this item and wanting to just put some framing as mentioned. Discussed with the committee prior. We do have a date to go to council and have a study session on the public art strategy. That is at the end of October, October 22nd. So I wanted to provide a little bit of background, partly because a lot of the good work that has been done by this committee on a public art strategy needs to be captured, but due to an approach by staff, which was incorrect, and I admit I goofed on this. We got maybe a little too far down a path without getting true guidance from council. So part of what I'm trying to do tonight is make sure that we can communicate to council work that's been done, but really let council provide some direction. So it's I'll use an analogy, try and use an art analogy, which is this committee has spent a lot of time molding clay and shaping clay and coming up with a piece. And the approach should have been city council, we have a piece of clay. What guidance would you like to provide us on how you would like us to shape this clay? We'll go off based upon your direction and come back with different options based upon your guidance. what has happened is the clay's been shaped, it's been molded, it's almost been fired in the kiln, and we've not had that opportunity for council to have some feedback. So we want to make sure to capture at a broad level some concepts, because this committee has done a lot of good work. But want to also ensure that council can provide direction on what they envision. And it may vary up very well with a lot of work that's been happening, or it may need to course correct. So just for ground setting, there was a council priority in the 2017, 2019 timeframe. This is the exact wording. Work with the Visual Arts Committee to develop a strategy to encourage public art and private development. Sort of open-ended, very vague to some degree. So in the fall of 2019, the city did hire a consultant to start doing some engagement and try and address this question. There was a plan in a early draft memo that was scheduled to go to city council in March 2020 on getting guidance on a public art strategy. And at that point, research had been done on a percent for private art, because that was really the guidance and the policy tool that was being looked at. Obviously, the pandemic happened and that work got tabled. As new staff coming on and being brought up to speed, kind of immediately jumping into, all right, what should be elements in a public arts strategy? Took that work up with the committee and have been working in different iterations on various aspects of that. Once again, getting to a lot of the good work, even some of the outreach that's occurred on a public art strategy. So one of the things wanting to do, once again, from a very high level, being able to communicate this to city council. So want to walk through city council. There's the initial direction as part of the guidance in 2017-19. There's some benchmarking around percent for a public art on private development. But as part of that outreach, typically art strategies have these other components. We want to garner your interest and understand your interest in some other things that might also help with art and private development. So in trying to have that conversation with council, we want to have basically that conversation with VAC. So what we hear today is meant to append as an attachment what will be a study session memo to city council on having that conversation with them so they can see the work you've done, some of your thoughts around what a public art strategy might include or some thoughts around that. So it's capturing the work, but not coming at it with, here's the fully formed clay. Here are some ideas we would like to see with the clay. So as they read the study session report, they can refer to attachment, understand some of the work. Okay. So the goal tonight was to ask basically three questions. We'll take a similar kind of approach with city council and asking some of the elements they wish to consider in a public art strategy. So wanted to walk through these three with you. So the first one from a grounding perspective. So the direction was private development. So the key element that is fairly well documented is, and this body's discussed it, is in order to kind of help incentivize art on private development, you need a percent for art program policy. Right now, the city has the K-5 policy, which is something this body is tasked with implementing. That's this project we just experienced. In addition, there is another policy, the K-6, that this body has dealt with, which is donated art. But that is a K6 policy is a catch-all for really any donations the city receives. One other aspect around funding for art, which is fairly new to us, is actually going after a grant for art. And we have submitted for a placemaking grant with VTA, but historically, this is something that the VAC has not done, staff has not historically done as a way to support funding for art. As it relates to percent for art programs, looking at some of our neighbors, and there's a missing row at the top. So there's the city on the far left. That middle column should be what is the percent for art on private development. So these are the policies in these communities where they've enacted a percent for art program for private development. So if you're building a new building, if over a certain threshold, you have to commit X% of public art. The next column is if you choose not, if your project triggers this policy, this is the in lieu option where you actually contribute funds to the city so that the city can then go procure art and place art in the community. So this is a pretty common practice as a policy tool to help get art into private development. The other way that happens in Mountain View currently is through community benefit. So sometimes when projects are proposed in Mountain View, one way to get community benefit for your project is to propose art. But other than that, there is no requirement for art today. So from a policy perspective, and this was kind of council's guidance, look into those types of policies or programs to encourage art in private development.
If you had a row for Mountain View on this, would it be 0 and 0?
Mountain View does not have a private art on private development.
Just to highlight the gap. This I found really powerful.
So, so here, and once again, Mountain View is not in this table, but just once again, kind of the other ways to encourage art or capture art in the community. So the last table talked about art on private side and the different in lieu or percentages. So this table represents the art in private development. That's the 1% on private development or the 0.5%. So all these cities have a percent for art on private development. The next one is, do they provide an in lieu blinker? So either you put money into the bank and allow the city to go purchase art, or you're going to put art in your community. The next one is if you have a percent for art on your public projects. Now, in this category, Mountain View would have a yes. We have the K5 policy. You will notice there are a couple communities that actually require private art. You do not actually have a public art policy for public projects. And then you'll also notice several communities actually have donations or sponsorship opportunities for art. Is the other way art gets put on. Once again, Mountain View does entertain art donations through the K6. So there are other ways art can come into this community. But typically when art comes into this community through donation, we end up putting it in a city facility or in a city park. So one of the things the ask from council was We'll look at how can encourage more art and private development. And one of the biggest policy tools would be an art private development policy. That is probably the most effective, straightforward approach. But as you've seen, there are some other tools. And I'll go through all this and we can kind of come back to the questions, but you know, should the city actually consider, and this is something council may want to entertain or consider, is should we look at other funding opportunities? Should we proactive in grants? Should we look for revising, reviewing other donor policies and things of that nature that get to our come up with sponsorship? So that's something as a bucket, funding bucket. I'll call it the funding bucket. That's question one. Question two is getting more about different policies. So when reviewing different public art strategies and public art master plans, often it's just not about funding for art. It's actually having policies that support an art program, whether that be a maintenance policy, a deassessing policy. Those are all policies that support the art ecosystem. They provide both guidance policymakers, and it also communicates to the community, hey, we have an art piece. It may be controversial. How might we remove it? What is going to be the public process we remove it? Should we be considering other policies that support a more robust art program? Should these be things we should be talking about or proposing, or thinking about? Once again, looking at kind of the different strategies, and you can see a lot of it's kind of a mixed match of communities. Some have maintenance policies, some have donation policies, some have deassessing policies. It varies. There is no right way to do this, but these are some of the things that are out there that support our programs. So really thinking about what should there be other policy considerations we would want to explore in developing an art program, a bigger art program.
And as we wouldn't be, if we went forward with this, we have models in other cities to base ourselves on. So we're not creating something.
Don't necessarily have to recreate the wheel,
Okay.
but also understanding and something we certainly want to identifying best practices to council as well as to this committee. Like maintenance policies are challenging. Maintenance policies, you know, in accepting artwork, you actually say the only way we're going to accept this artwork is that whoever's donating to us contributes to a fund. So we have a way to support it. There's all those considerations that can be done. So really the second question, wanting kind of, once again, thinking more broadly, not specific action item kinds of things. Could there be some other thought to strengthening an art program for Mountain View? K5 has been a very effective program, but it's only been based upon our city related public art. Should there be some other policy considerations? And then the third question is really because of at least the initial interpretation and direction from council was looking at art and private development, and coming back and stepping back and saying, do we want to have some goals around a park? What do we aspire to be as a community? How do we communicate art in our community? So should we have these other things built into our art strategy, or do we just adopt a policy that's one more tool in the toolkit? Those are the three, once again, three broad buckets of wanting to seek feedback. As I said, the intent of this meeting today is trying to capture in these buckets so we can articulate as an attachment to the memo, the study session memo that would go to council. what's the VAC's input on this? We want to seek direction from council, have the study session, ask them questions, get their feedback, help us guide and provide direction to the VAC of what they would like to see in the document. And then, really it becomes the work after that and what gets integrated and coming back. to the health park strategy. So that's really the purpose. Once again, trying to roll back not disregard all the good work. Come back at a higher level. Once again, need this direction on council on the shaping of the clay. Fortunately, we've shaped a lot of clay. Now we want to kind of put it in bigger buckets and allow them to kind of move the clay around and augment it a little bit more. So that it becomes clear for what the next steps are.
And your also purpose is kind of edgy, going back to what was originally requested. How do we fit in with the rest of the community around us? How do they view it? And are we aligned? Presenting that to council, where the communities around us view it. And do we want to emulate that or stay where we are? It's kind of for first question. And then this fits into that.
They may not care what anybody else thinks about us.
They may.
Or if they
or may
did, they
not,
would have done this already.
Well, but I think it's very helpful to frame it into this is what the Bay Area communities around us are doing. It sets us up now that we had this idea, it's the culture around us is doing this. So do we fit in or not?
It seems like ideally what we'd like to do, our strategy in this is to ask them questions, give them ideas that will guide them to come back and ask us for things we already have,
Once again, I think
like the vision and all that.
so. I think. And because this has occurred in public meetings, the information's already publicly documented. But I do think we really do need to get clarity around it.
Absolutely.
It started at a kind of a very nascent, small thing. It can stay a very small thing, because for whatever reasons, we need that direction from council and this is an opportunity to really kind of capture as artists, but also as individuals that have been appointed to represent the artist community. What does this mean, right? Where is potentially the opportunity here? And so we're able to communicate that information to council so that they can help figure out, yes, we should expand it. And here, we like these ideas. Yes, go do that.
Yeah.
And maybe that's where work gets picked up, this body's done, or the work needs to change based upon that.
Right.
It's not that it wasn't bad work, we just need to make sure it's in alignment with council vision. And so this really does end the presentation. I do recognize we have a hand up, so I think we want to answer questions, maybe take public comment.
Yeah. Do we have more questions? And I was wondering what you're expecting from us at this point, a feedback round after?
You want us to answer the three questions that yeah, okay.
Right now it's questions.
So do you have any questions about what I have framed,
And
what
then we'll
I'm
go
asking
to
of you?
feedback.
No, that was very clear. Thank you.
Yeah, you did it very. The
So-
graphs were just very
Yeah.
good.
So let's go to public comments and then we can give feedback.
Okay. Bruce?
Hi, everyone. Bruce England, Wisman Station Drive. I am in the PRC meeting at the same time, so this is a bit of bouncing back and forth. They're talking about there's overlap, really. It's how do you do art and how do you develop a biodiversity strategy? that makes sense in Mountain View. So I'm going to repeat things that you've heard from me before, but just for the sake of emphasizing. I think also that this goes forward to your work plan. I should bring this up later, but when you talk about meeting with other committees and so on, other advisory bodies, the PRC I think is key. So you can get to some of the things that I'm going to bring up now when I get to my notes. Okay. Again, you've heard these from me before, but as you put together your strategy and you share that with city council, I like the part, John, that you were talking about related to private art, you know, like corporate art. And I'm sorry, I did not, because it was bouncing back and forth, I didn't really catch it as readily as I would have liked to, but it sounds like that you would bring that into your purview in some appropriate ways. That sounds great to me. Overall responsible use of materials in art projects with priority for those that are biodegradable or readily recoverable. As you know, I was not a fan of the butterfly placement at Evelyn Park because it didn't seem like it really fit that at all. Consideration for landscaping elements as part of art placements. I've used the Berlin Wall placement in front of the library as an example of, you know, it could be better if you can put landscaping around it as opposed to trash cans and phone booths and things like that. And I mentioned this in the last meeting, but prioritizing selection of artists and youth populations while encouraging them to do the kind of things that I have asked for in these comments also. I see that in the staff memo. The part about bringing youth into this is in there, and also some discussion about end of life for the art pieces, but the details for that last part weren't in there. So I just wanted to emphasize what kind of materials you really ought to be thinking about as you choose your art projects. Thank you.
Do we have any other comments?
No.
Okay, so if we wanna add a feedback.
So I want to have a question with your first question about, you know, the grants. Are you presenting that as a replacement for doing private fees?
No.
Or is that an addition?
Because that's what the city council has already asked for, right, in that
Yeah,
I'm just trying to
2017,
get clarity.
19.
No,
Yeah,
that's a whole
yeah.
separate thing.
It's a
Yeah,
new
okay.
add-on thing.
Is that correct?
Yes, it's not looking to replace, it would be
Okay.
looking to supplement.
Supplement, okay. Okay.
Of, so the, just to be clear, want to come back with, here's how other cities approach art and private development. One common tool is the percent for art. There are other types of approaches as well, such as.
So you wouldn't present it as, well, let's not do the private,
No.
let's do this instead. And say, let's do first, or do you want to do that? Okay. Yay or nay? And then if they say yay, oh, by the way, there's other things you would. So this is a supplement, correct?
Right, so the intent is to, once again, as much as we can provide information to council to say, here are the different types of approach, so here's your original ask, here's the different approaches to this. This is probably the most common one, but then there are others of the menu of things. Strong reactions to all of them, none of them, like them all, like one. Are those things that the things we should explore and incorporate?
Okay, good.
Do you expect city council to engage on the percent for public?
It seems like
Again.
if we accomplish anything, even from their side, I think they feel like if we accomplish one thing in this whole public art strategy is to get that 1% for private art. And that's gonna be that's gonna be 90% of the impact. The rest of this is 80. Yeah, the rest is details until we amp them up. And grants, the trick with grants is they're almost always very specific. We would have to find a need for some art somewhere and You know, so the grants will kind of come up organically, I think,
And you
you
need
know.
someone to write them too.
Yeah, I mean, grant writing, as you probably
a lot of
know,
work.
is a lot of work.
But
Yeah, a lot of
it's not even worth it if you don't have a specific project and what's the need for
Yeah,
that
let's go
project?
question by question.
So I,
But yeah, question one.
Question
Oh,
one.
okay.
Can we go to question?
so I guess the question I would have, John, is what's the cost to staff to do grants? Because from my experience, that's a lot of work.
So, so I think, I'm gonna, yes, it's a lot of work and once again, we're putting a lot of, what I'm trying to capture is what are the menu items?
Right.
So in my way of thinking about it is like, here are the different menu options that are available for funding sources. You know, these are the two most common. Here's some less common. Here's some really radical strategies.
Mhm.
What of any of these should we be focused on? And that would be something we'd be posing to city council. Here are the range of things. The purpose of this is I'm asking the VAC, are there any particular strategies as a body beyond, say, 8% for art, you would like to at least have listed or as a consideration? Once again, this is meant to supplement this, so when asking questions of council, then a staff report saying, here's the benchmarking, different policies and programs, getting their guidance on it. This is a chance to see, hey, VAC is very interested in percent for art and other things. So I'm just trying to identify from your perspective, collectively, the VAC's perspective, you know, should we be exploring?
And I really appreciate, John is really trying to open up the conversation, get your feedback. I'd like to just make a couple of suggestions for you to think about too, since I've been in so many council study sessions.
You.
So, one of the things you've already said that's very valuable that I suggest that we do capture is, for instance, if you want us to say, yes, grants should be looked at, but strong consideration should be given to the work that might be involved in applying for the grant. And will it actually work for what we're looking for? So it isn't maybe an open-ended, yes, go after all the grants. It's strategically
Yeah.
determine which grants to go after.
That's the good word, strategic grants.
Exactly,
When-
that would best, so if that's an area that you would suggest is something that should be considered as public art strategy, you can frame it too for council in terms of where they need to think about this. And the other piece, I'm gonna blow this wide open on you a little bit, John, I'm sorry, but they asked what might council really discuss about the percentage on approach on private development. And what I could envision that might come up is it universally applied, or are there going to be some exceptions? And what's top of mind right now for council is the need to get more housing, particularly affordable housing. And some of those affordable housing projects they're doing everything they can to just get the money together to get these things built. So adding a 1% construction costs onto them, that type of thing. So those are the types of things I could see council spending a little time at the study session thinking about, in terms of generally they may very well likely be very supportive of percentage on development, but they may want to talk a little bit more about framing it in a way that doesn't have unintended consequences.
make exceptions, maybe you can make an
Exactly.
exception for
Affordable housing.
whatever.
So, not suggesting right now that you overly spend, because I know you've already been here for 2.5 hours, but, it would, if you have something about this piece, even though I know, John, you didn't actually put this in the question, but, we have no doubt that you're fully supportive of this as being a key funding mechanism, but if you want to convey to council that there are areas where you think it should be considered as well, exceptions or something.
A compassionate one.
Well, I mean, this should focus on commercial development
So.
and
Yeah.
exclude things like affordable housing. Because
But I think that's needs to be developed, right?
But it needs to be.
Sure, no, that needs,
I
I mean,
think-
that sounds like good job for lawyers.
Well, no, I mean, but I agree.
Well, I don't think-
but this will be-
Council will think about that.
So-
Yeah,
And
we have to
we
work
will
that
hear from
language,
council
right?
what they think
Right.
about
But-
that,
but I think
exactly in that way.
We should frame it as we're assuming this is for commercial development.
But it makes a
or-
lot, but it makes a lot of sense to frame it openly, right? Because that's probably what we're gonna get back from council, that they go narrow, they're gonna
exclude some
drill
of that.
down on certain.
So again,
That's what you're
council probably
saying.
won't make final decisions at this study session. They'll direct staff to go study things further.
Mhm.
So not need to get, but in general, if there's anything you want council to know as they do these deliberations, this is the time.
And then that'll give them the opportunity to sort through that when they're.
I have a
Yeah.
question regarding one, because just when I was looking at all the cities, the things that cities do like Palo Alto, where they have an art, they do art projects, right? They have their digital art project every other year. Also, because we're saying we're interested in doing events. One bucket in terms of funding that might need to be added, in my opinion, is does the city want to set aside money, right? In the sense of, do we want to have our signature art event every other year? Where is that Palo Alto money coming from, right? Is that always a grant? If it's not, or a sponsorship, right, of some, because you had sponsorship on there, it's not just donation, which to me seems more like you receiving end, when just sponsorship is searching end, right? You're looking for a sponsor because you have a certain project in mind. So in my opinion, or I don't know if it's the right word, the city, what if the city wants to initiate art or an art project, should we look at funding options for
For
that? Is
finding
that,
a sponsor for the event.
would this come from a general fund that's already earmarked, or would this come from sponsorship opportunities that we're looking for, or just in terms of a question, because we have all those things later on, might be worthwhile asking now, is this an additional funding option? The city looking at their own funding structure as a city to set aside money for art, or more in a sense of sponsorship, or going to the usual other city sponsors in maybe an other area and apply it, things like that, like use existing relationships. That would be an add to me, and just in terms of regarding the presentation, I think it could be even more clear that the percent for private development is kind of already done by the council. They should be reminded of that. I think that would be helpful, and that the city, that Mountain View is actually on those lists. I think that would be very strong to actually show Mountain View in relation to all of this, even if we just in this one in particular have to say nothing. I think for council to engage, I think that would be very helpful. And and then one others. So what was the second?
So if I can ask a quick clarifying question. I mean, this speaks a little bit to Don's hoping, which is very good. Like, this is taken from their policy, right? So just drawing out like Milpitas. Any building, any non-residential building over 2,000 square feet, that pretty much applies to everything.
Wow.
Should, or, I mean, in reality, once again, depending on whether it's $10,000, $5,000, or 500,000, you know, these obviously become policy decision, right? And certainly the K-5 has a minimum threshold in order to trigger K-5. Just picking a little bit at the thread that Don mentioned, and this is a good thing to think about to point, which is maybe it doesn't apply to residential, but should there be some consideration, or should this apply to all non-residential, or maybe only non-residential development that's over 30,000 square feet? So if you're a small property owner that has a 9,000 square foot building, or a lot that can only accommodate a 10,000 square foot building, and you're gonna build it, should you be putting a building?
Yeah, I mean, I go to an auto shop over on Pioneer, you know, it's just industrial, and yeah, those guys would qualify. They'd have, if they redid their building, they'd have to put up some art.
So those are the kinds of, ultimately, council would have to adopt a policy. I think just kind of pulling at the thread that was highlighted, these are the kinds of things, if this body has some thoughts around that. And I know it's hard to kind of pull back a little bit from very specific things that this committee's asked for. And that's fine if they're, you want to reiterate some of those very specific things, that's okay too. But kind of coming at it, these are different things. Once again, kind of providing a menu, things for council to kind of say, yeah, go explore that, or don't explore.
So would you then put in, as you did your menu, ask the question, should this apply to residential? Should it apply to commercial? What size commercial? And kind of guide them through the thinking.
We can certainly do that, or we can keep it very top level with them and kind of, you know, depending on the questions that come out of that, maybe a very clear signal, whatever we propose back as a strategy approach, based upon what we heard, we're gonna say, leave residential completely off. We heard the signaling, this is not, so we wanna start here. It would be non-residential, X square feet, they could say.
So you could even just propose that as, you know, yes, we want this 1% with, of course, you know, some common sense ideas like we just talked about. It's like, it doesn't have to be major policy, because I don't think many people are going to disagree with it. It's just nice to show that we've thought about it.
So let me maybe pull one other thread. So obviously, I think general interest in percent for public art on private side, and do in lieu option, favor of.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I like the extra 1/4% too.
Yeah, and that's consequential
Yeah.
creation of an art fund, right? We need the bucket for that money
So-
and then we could split.
Because that also
Well,
allows
maybe
us
we
to.
don't put in the extra 1/4%, then maybe that puts more in our bucket.
And if it goes into an art bucket, that could be used anywhere in the city. Right? If we write it that way.
Yeah.
So the underserved areas could then get art.
Yes, obviously some terms around how that's used.
Yeah.
And once again, those are all things we need to flush out legally, but as a guidance, you know, so lean on that thread for a second. Do you want to make the in lieu, is it favorable from general consensus, have it match? So you can either do 1% in lieu or 1% in project, or if you're not gonna put it in your project, in lieu fees cheaper. But once again, kind of looking at the ranges here, some in lieus are consistent. Some in lieu are at different rates. Some in lieu basically say,
Sunnyvale, yeah.
you know, there's different ways to structure this
Interesting.
depending on the outcome you're trying to maybe get to. So there
Yeah.
are different ways of doing this.
So Cupertino's higher in lieu and Sunnyvale is lower in lieu.
And
I
the
would-
consequences,
Well, I also,
consequences for the art fund is,
Yeah.
I also
and-
like the Sunnyvale thing, if the developer doesn't spend it all on their, you know, maybe they don't wanna put, they don't have a great spot for art,
And I
they
would-
can give some of it back to us.
Definitely look at Sunnyvale because they
I like that.
advertising that they brought this to the area. They are doing it the longest. So that seems to me actually, they learned.
and they have a fund, they have an art fund, I think. I
And-
can't remember what
And
the
that was their
number is
reason
of
to get
that.
an
Probably
art
pretty good at
coordinator
that,
because
right?
they
Says on
had so
there.
much money in the fund already.
Yeah.
They needed somebody to minister.
Exactly, they have a substantial 100
Yeah, you
K
can
or something.
launder that.
Yeah. I'd like to see the in lieu fee be equal to, or maybe even greater than the onsite fee. Just, I'm kind of leaning towards equal because I don't want the developer to decide based on just whatever's cheaper. You know, I like the idea of it being on site at most developments because then it's spread throughout the city. But if there's a really good reason to not include art on that site, then they can just pay the same amount in lieu. And then we get that for our fund.
The
I'd also
point
wanna-
of-
Yeah.
Go on.
I'd want to, in terms of housing, say, only add the art fee to above market rate housing. So affordable housing and market rate housing would not have any fee, but if you're building luxury housing, then it gets hit with the fee. Because those developments can afford it. And then if it's mixed use, then say the fee only applies to the commercial portion of the development. So if it's like 60% commercial in a mixed use development, then that office space or restaurant space or whatever, that gets the fee, but the residential portion does not, unless it's luxury or above market rate, I should say, just be more specific. Yeah, that's all.
I like that.
Yeah, that, the second point by
And I
Jesse
think
seems
In
good.
general, we like the art.
The thing about it, the encouraging the in lieu to be higher though. What I kind of like about the in lieu is it gives us a bucket to use anywhere in the city as opposed to. oh,
I
North
would
Bay
say
Shore.
it should be
Well,
lower.
Only
actually.
North Bay Shore, so the
I mean,
people in.
Sunnyvale has it like nearly half, I mean, could be 2% art and then 1.5 in lieu.
1.5 for the in lieu. Yeah, I
So
would
it's a
say.
little lower and then that will wash some money into it.
And I can imagine a project where, you know, somebody spends 1% on their art. And then they've still got, you know, so much that they're supposed to put in and that'd go in the bucket,
I think
so.
that Sunnyvale option is.
So that's why you like the Sunnyvale option.
Yeah.
Although
The model.
2% is gonna be a
It's
tough
bit
sell.
less. Well, The
And-
city,
but we
some
could-
extra
But
money.
we, that aspect of the Sunnyvale where what you don't spend on art, and then somebody's gotta do the bookkeeping on that stuff, so that's.
I mean, if you look at some of the developments, if it's like. These giant, you know. I don't even know what it costs like to build these giant office buildings, but. You know, how much the, like 2% is like a lot of
Moving on to
money
the-
for art then.
Is there a reason we shouldn't be open to grants and donations and, you know, whatever? I mean, none of that seems like it's a bad idea. It's just a matter of being strategic about it and making sure we're not just constantly hounding people for grants or something. So does that,
Executing on that.
Yeah, I think I guess we are all in favor of.
Yeah, my only question would be, grants is a lot of work.
Mhm.
So it would have to
I
be
would-
something that's worthwhile to go after.
Mhm.
you'd have,
Really not
Maybe-
replace the.
But to me,
fees.
Fund.
that,
you'd have to
that's,
use common sense. and-
that's
and
the
do it when
beauty
it's
of
smart.
that's the beauty of the work session as well, that maybe council on their own also will say, well, we need dedicated staff to. do this. Right?
Yeah, I was about to bring that up. I think
That is
it's
something
more worth
that
it.
is in our, that we
Mhm.
worked out, right, with all our strategy work, that we came down to definitely the percent % for private development, and the other big one was dedicated staff position, because there's so much more work
Yeah.
that needs to be done.
Mhm.
That would be
Yeah.
one of it, right?
Yeah,
A
that's true.
person
That's true.
who
Yes, yes.
administers.
Yeah, I want to
the
recommend
budget,
dedicated staff.
A person who writes grants to
Mhm,
the right
mhm.
organizations. That hopefully, right, we go this far, and then this would be what council would make out of it.
Yeah, maybe we let them,
Come up with the idea.
yeah, let them.
I
let
mean,
it
we
be
can
their
still
idea.
add it, we can still have it in the proposed action catalog, right? That it's not a secret, but that they would on their own say, well, this
Exactly.
obviously needs that.
Yeah.
Is that clear with number one then?
Shall
John?
we go?
Or-
I think
It's
it's
not like number 1 and 2 are
So I think
solid.
I guess the one other thing I'd ask about number one in particular, and kind of, if I'm hearing this correctly, is heard a couple members kind of comment on this concept of right now, there really is a need for funding to be able to put art in other places that aren't necessarily triggered by K5. K5 is a very, it had, it's for this project. And so creating funding mechanisms that allow for greater opportunity to maybe spread, but put art in other places that would not necessarily receive it because they're either built out project is an aspect of that. So this desire to have more flexible funding to do projects, is that a thread I'm kind of?
Captures it,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
That's
I-
idea.
I think it's
It would be,
important.
probably if we could identify a few places that would.
Things like Montaloma that don't have it.
I think we would come up with a lot of ideas,
Yeah.
right? I think what we need to convey to council is, yes, this is what we want, and we would come up.
And we've had places like Questa come to us and say, we want to do art, but we have no funds to help you.
Yeah, the
That
art
would
should
be
go
ideal.
into, it should go in high traffic places, but it should also go out in all neighborhoods, right, for example. And
Which-
places where people can make unexpected discoveries that there's
Right,
art
which
somewhere.
won't
And then
happen.
there's big things that should also happen.
And these other areas don't necessarily get a lot of development, so they
Yeah.
would be covered through the.
Right,
K5
exactly.
We could
project.
even out area, even out
Where?
that
Where are we doing?
inequality.
You know, number 3 yet?
Well, no, so.
Then we're still
I
two.
think we got one clarified.
Yeah.
So number two is, this body has already talked about a lot of policies. So, and all of you are familiar with the donor policy, maintenance policy, talked about a deassessing policy. I presume those are all things certainly this group has discussed are in support of for developing the art strategy. So thumbs up there. I guess the question is from a policy perspective, should there be other one other potential area in this is right now their discussion, and not to belabor this, is there's putting art in places. Different mechanism, K5, private art, going after more funding for new art. Is there anything in this vein that should be tied to education? Or education?
Ooh. Ooh. In the-
Maybe I'm pulling out a thread I don't need to pull out, but like, is there,
Do we have?
those are the kinds of, are
This
there
would go
other
in the
things?
Policy, it would be a policy then.
So, as a for instance, and once again, it's not this way in Mountain View, and I'm not suggesting it needs to be this way in Mountain. As a for instance, in San Jose, their art funding comes from there's a portion that comes from TOT. And part of that split in TOT is for art education,
What's DOT?
sorry, transit occupancy.
Oh.
So
right,
their
right.
funding makeup and approach
Mhm.
for art is different.
Oh,
So is arts elements of art education, if trying to grow art appreciation. Should there be some consideration or thoughts around, or should the focus short term, or midterm just be on art? Which is fine. But these are the kind of things, is there an interest in kind of daylighting this thought of art appreciation?
I think if you could sell it as art and music appreciation, something like that, that's not our thing, but there isn't a music committee.
Yeah.
But is that a policy?
I mean, there's downtown committee, there's performing arts committee, they do musical stuff.
So what I mean by policy is, much like 8% for art, we have a K-5 policy that says 1%,
Yeah.
sorry,
It regulates.
it's now 2%, K-5 says 2% goes to art.
Do we have that?
Art in lieu is 1%, or art in lieu could be it's 1%, and we're gonna split that bucket of money to do like, there's a million different
Oh, yeah.
iterations. And once again, I'm speaking about this not from the legal test. I'm speaking about it as, once again, is this, there are other things you can do potentially policy wise, and this is a chance to just kind of put it out there. It may stick, it may not stick. I'm not trying to dissuade you or sway you in any way. These are the way other programs deal with art. Some have art grants, some do. There's a lot of different imaginations that could happen here. So that's really in the world of policy.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. I didn't know we could do it. I didn't know.
Yeah.
The only thing I would ask is, since we are zero compared to the rest of the, I would ask that question in lieu of what does Sunnyvale do? What are some of the people who have more of a mature art strategy in place? How do they tackle that?
Yeah, I wanted to say the same thing, like.
Just so we learn.
Test this list of policies with other cities. To me, it feels like there might be more, but I don't know if we can think of them.
I think there should be some kind of TOT consideration, and it might be smart to tie that to events, art events, right? Or something. Sorry?
Would TOT be more like a funding bucket?
Yeah, and it could be tied to art events specifically or something, or it could just be a general bucket.
Above our
but
It
but
is,
I like
but
I like
is it
diverse
worthwhile
funding.
to remind council that this would be something they could look at?
I mean,
yeah, definitely.
It's how another city has.
One risk. One risk of having all your eggs in one basket funding wise is that it dries up, right? So if we just have 1% for art and private development and that's it, then like if there's a time when no one's getting loans, for instance, like right now, and there's not that much development going on, then we won't really get public art. And then TOT, if you're relying just on that, like San Jose does, then it has its own issues where, during the pandemic, no one was staying in hotels. So that tanked and they weren't really doing public art. So I like to have a blend of funding sources. So that way, if one industry falls through, then at least you're getting some money from somewhere else.
So I think what I heard in bucket 2 is maybe explore some other programmatic things and some of the benchmarking that's done, and maybe present those as
Could think education,
educational
events, maybe something, a policy regarding programming and events. Policy, we touched on that before, donor and sponsors, so both directions, right? Is there a need, is there a policy needed regarding grant seeking or sponsor seeking? Is there a policy needed if we want to put out art events or art programming? Is there a policy needed for that? I think.
And then, so moving to the third question, so this body has definitely worked, so prior to even the hiccup in the pandemic, the original consultant had started to do work on some goals. That went to this committee and started to formalize some goals. And this committee obviously spent some time with a vision for public art. Those are things we can certainly share. We can express, as a working concept for vision, this is something that was as part of an opportunity to engage the public. This was shared at the Art and Wine Festival. Like, what do you think about this as a potential vision? So there's some public comment that was received on that. So those are things we can certainly share. Going beyond kind of strategies and actions, those really are going to be dictated by direction. So while a lot of work has been done on identifying actions and strategies, you need to probably hold off on that and figure out what's the important aspects that council would like to focus on or have staff explore. And certainly revisit some of that stuff, but certainly able to include, a lot of work was done on the vision. I think that's something worthy of sharing, and certainly talking about the goals.
So would you would say, let's include the vision, the goals, not the actions. Do you include the strategies as well?
I think the strategies need to be probably sussed out once a better sense of some of the guidance from council.
So you go with the vision and the goals for the council, and then based upon their buy-in, we would come back to us, say, okay, let's relook at the strategies again and what we've learned. And then certainly the next year we'll work on the action items. That's correct?
Did you have something?
Well, I think you captured it. It's not unusual at a study session like this, at the initiation of a new strategy or a new plan. One of the first things that council considers is a vision statement and the goals. They keep it at that level.
Okay.
And my question to all of you was, I was reading this and I kind of mentioned to John, this looks a really good thing to just bring to council and, and is this the vision and the goals that you all have already developed, you agree on?
Yep.
That is something that can go to council and say, the Visual Arts Committee has, developed this vision. John can mention that it's had some public outreach, here are the goals. And then you ask council if they concur or feedback on it.
Right.
They sometimes, they will,
Yeah.
but that's good, because that's where you get then that direction for that next step on the
Yep.
strategies and the actions.
And if I remember our vision and goal, there wasn't a whole, but they weren't controversial.
It would be
So-
these. that
Yeah.
would be brought to them.
So the strategies that we spent a lot of time on, you'd say let's hold off on until we get the.
Let's
Yeah.
get better direction. Because once again, having council respond to the different comments that are going to be incorporated here, the benchmarking. There could be something in the benchmarking that might strike someone's interest
Yeah.
a great deal and say, please follow up on that.
Yeah.
Follow up on these 5 things. We're not really so interested. As an example, like one of the things council in the EVS said, go look into a vacancy tax, explore a vacancy tax as part of that initial feedback in a strategy. We did that, we came back and then they said, hey, we're not gonna prioritize that as a thing to do right now. We did the work. So once again, it's a chance for them to give the guidance, come back with something, and then they can prioritize it appropriately. So it's not to say the good work is lost. I don't think it is at all. Definitely need some feedback from council before we go too much further. So it's
Like I said, if
a
we're
light
lucky, we can,
break tap
yeah,
on the work for a little bit.
we're lucky we can resurrect some of the work we've done before.
I mean, we didn't reinvent the wheel, right? We just gathered what's
Yeah.
out there, basically.
Okay.
But John, so just that I understand correctly, so what you're gonna do with 3 is you're gonna ask what we should develop is this, vision, goals and strategies and.
No, just the vision and goals is what.
No, let me
Okay,
finish.
sorry.
What you're asking council is when you give us the task of developing a strategy, you're asking it should include all four, right?
Right, so that.
And what you're sharing in the study session is just vision statement and goals.
And so.
I like it.
That's what
So-
Yeah.
Right, it's
We've
important.
given you a lot of information.
Yeah.
Here is some work that the VAC's done that you
Yeah.
can read in detail on in supplemental memo and like the vision we can call it, you know. What other feedback would you like to provide in kind of the next steps of developing a public art strategy? Should we pursue all of these potential funding things, benchmarking?
Right.
3 of them, all of them. But, and then from that will kind of set what is the work that needs to be done to really come back with a strategy that reflects the menu items and the suggestions that they're.
And with this question, you're asking for they're good to go. We collect all their feedback and we put this art
So
strategy
that,
together.
the intent would be, okay, we've got feedback from you, council, we'd like to go work with. Reacting to that, we've gotten the feedback, we will continue to work with the Visual Arts Committee on fleshing this out. We will do some additional public outreach at XYZ events, do some surveying, we can suggest a lot of different things. And then our intent would be to come back with a public art strategy for discussion, potential adoption.
Yeah.
Get the direction, go do the work, come back and say,
Yeah. And this is a good question for us, then we have like a mandate, right? To.
okay, so.
Okay, sounds good.
This feedback's been,
This is just feedback, right? Nothing to decide on.
no, just wanted to capture it and make sure we've
Yeah.
are able to communicate it up to council.
Yeah.
And we've been clear enough for you.
Yes, between Kirsten and I, we've got. notes.
Okay, then let's stop it right there.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Dawn.
Thank you. I
You-
was council to 11 last night, so I think I'd like to.
Oh.
It's only 9. Thank you for having me.
PRC speaking up
I know. Okay, let's get to 6.4, discussion.
By the way, very good work.
Fiscal year.
We'll put it together, it's really clear. Excellent.
Work plan.
So I'll keep it pretty short. So we talked about the drafters work plan last month. We had a recommendation to, remove or relocate one of the, action items in the work plan about the sidewalk.
The
The
sidewalk
utility box,
studio.
yeah, sidewalk studio, phase 2 program. So we removed that from the work plan, not that it still can't be considered as part of like these other items in the work plan and like collaborating with the Chamber of Commerce. But since it was so specific, we just took it out and then the VAC can still talk about it in the future. So our ask tonight is to adopt the fiscal year 24-25 work plan, and then that will go to the city council, this fall, I think September. For their approval.
I love this work.
This is the only change, right? that we
Yeah,
make?
yeah, no other changes.
Just everything else we've seen in the
Yeah.
last meeting.
Yeah. So as a kind of a reminder, from the last meeting, really the changes that we made from the previous year,
right.
this last year's work plan was, just updating timeline and project information and then, adding, sort of consistency with the economic vitality strategy. And
Just as a clarification, the milestones that don't have a blank date, what does that mean means what to be determined?
we have, so it might be kind of hidden, like, oh, I guess the, Yeah, yeah.
Page 3,
Which page are you talking about?
well, page 2 is recommend public art, recommend public art boathouse.
Oh, to be
We didn't-
determined,
We didn't
yeah.
have dates there.
Yeah, that's.
What's,
You can just keep
I mean,
it,
it's just,
yeah.
rather than the same thing on three where you have ongoing on the first one.
Yeah, those should be, yeah, so for the public art, for castle shaped bollards, and that is TBD. For the boathouse expansion, now we
Dependent
kind
on
of,
something
Yeah,
else.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just,
Not on us.
I'm just, oh, fine.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
all. It just
Yeah.
been, it's to
But
be
it's-
determined, it's ongoing, it's.
Yeah.
But it's not on us, right? It's dependent on
Right.
when we get there.
Yeah, no, I'm just
Yeah.
clarifying what I'm reading.
yeah.
But other than
Any
that,
other questions? Comments? Public?
Do we need to
do
approve?
do we need to approve it?
Yes, yes, we
Make a motion?
No, we,
Well,
public, please.
Hold on, Bruce, sorry.
There you go.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
You good?
Good, because I'm on a sort of different audio system here. Okay, just a quick comment on the work plan. I was a little lost because there were two attachments. And they seem to be pretty much identical, but that's okay. I just wanted to let you know that the Parks and Rec Commission, as I told you, I was listening to both meetings. They're talking about their work plan too. And one of the items they've got in there is Visual Arts Committee update on public art strategy on September 11th. So whether or not you have it in your work plan, I just wanted to raise that with you. I really like the idea of the two committees working together, commission, for reasons I've already said. So if you wanted to include that, if you wanted to revise it in order to include that, if you feel like that'll be more clear for your work, fine. But I just wanted to raise that it is in the work plan for PRC. And that's it for me. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. John is, I know we don't react, but is there something you wanna look at?
So, I think maybe offering an amendment as part of your approval, which is on page 2 of the fiscal year 24-25 plan, not the 23-24 plan. That's why they're two plans. One's the old one, one's the new one. But on page 2, item C, it talks about working with other advisory bodies. We can amend that to reflect and engage with the TRC on the public art strategy. So we'll do it basically column 2. So on page 2, line item C, in the middle or second column, you can add verbiage in there to reference engaging with PRC on the public art strategy.
Add the PRC to all the committees.
Committee,
yeah.
Arts Committee, the PRC.
Just add that
Yeah.
committee as
Yeah.
well. Yes.
And that would
Let's do
then
that.
address
Yeah.
and create alignment. If you're okay, so if there's no further discussion or changes, we recommending approving the work plan for 24-25 with a minor augmentation to line item C within the C for the next fiscal.
So I make a motion that we approve the work plan for fiscal year 2024-25. With the
Amendment.
amendments
on
on the
C.
meeting September 11. Page 2,
Well, that's a C.
item C.
Item C.
To include the PRC
Yeah.
in the list of. committees.
Yeah, yeah,
Et cetera, et cetera.
What Johnson?
Who seconds? Seconds. All in favor?
Just say,
Yep, in favor.
Motion approved. Work plan approved. We are almost done. Almost done. We are down to 7.
There is no new business. So now you're at 8.
So we're at 8 comments, questions, committee reports.
So there's
Our bucket to say.
staff has 2 comments. First one being, after the adjournment of the meeting, we need you to stay for approximately 2 minutes. And we'd like Jesse, if you can go camera on, after we end the meeting, we've been asked by the clerk to take a picture of the committee. So,
I would have rest.
so, at the end of the meeting, if you will kindly indulge, we've been asked to take a picture of the committees. Comment two.
Okay.
Congrats, Jesse. Good job.
So comment two is more of a general comment. It was brought to staff's attention that a fellow member reached out to council member advocating that they direct staff to explore other opportunities related to the shoreline project. And attend this meeting and basically provide that direction to staff. All of you are private citizens. All of you are wearing a hat as a VAC member. This is an educational moment. As a private person, you're more than able to communicate with your council members. That's why they're there. Advocating that a council member, and council members can certainly attend these meetings, but asking a council member to act on behalf of the council and advocating a position for a project isn't appropriate. So council ultimately makes the decision of recommendations from this body. So this is just to say, all welcome to engage council as citizens. You're all able to make comments at council on items. Advocating council members to act on behalf of council and suggesting staff do things. So it's just a friendly reminder. There's a balance that needs to be struck between wearing yourself as a citizen. Just be mindful of that. This is. Thank you. Cool.
Thanks, John.
Two more comments. So the Castro Street Bollard project, so we applied for the VTA grant. They have pushed back the notice of award. They pushed it back from June 1 to June 10. And we still haven't seen any award on the website, so we're waiting a little bit just to see if we still can have an opportunity to get the grant before we post it. That being said, we'll need to do a special meeting to jury the proposals if we want to get it done before like the end of summer. So we'll keep you updated on a timeline, and in terms of setting up a special meeting, we'll send out a doodle poll or something to see
Would
what
that be
date works
okay?
best. Yeah, it wouldn't have to be on like the same date that we normally hold it, the second Wednesday of the month. It could be at any time of the day. We just have to post a notice of the meeting at least.
And you're looking like at July or August,
Mhm. Yeah.
because we don't meet until September.
Yeah.
Is this the final meeting? We go on the break now for 2 months. We won't meet,
Yeah.
theoretically, we won't meet on July. And we won't meet in March.
Yeah, it would just be a special meeting only to talk about
Before
the
September, basically,
Bollard proposals.
July or early August, probably.
Yeah, exactly. And then the second update, sort of related to VAC, but if you have any business, friends that own businesses in the city, we're doing a workshop, a free workshop about creating window displays. So fun, it's on June 26th. We're very excited about it. We're having a San Francisco-based visual merchandiser help present to, and yeah, so I have flyers, you can hand them out.
Oh,
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah, it's good.
It's great.
Thank you. Yeah, let's bring a flyer.
Any other?
Anything else? Comments from the committee? Questions?
I'm good.
Okay, it's 9:15 and adjourning the.
Oh, great.